Filmmaker and actor Tom Konkle joins us once again on Midnight's Edge in the Morning. Greetings and welcome to the middle of the week. Happy Hanukkah for those who are celebrating, and it's just begun, and we're a couple weeks away from Christmas. Welcome to Midnight's Edge in the Morning. I am Tom Connors. With me, as always, is the boss man, Andre. How you doing?
Greetings, everyone. I'm good, thank you.
Good to hear, good to hear. Also with us is our resident physician who has all your entertainment needs taken care of for you. He knows what to prescribe you. I screwed that up big time. Mr. Script Doctor.
Thank you. Good morning. I don't really have an intro. It's all right.
Yeah, you do, and I just messed it up. And also with us, our esteemed guest who joins us from time to time here on Midnight's Edge in the Morning, the one, the only, Mr. Tom Konkle. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on, Tom. Andre, it's always a pleasure. And Script, it's an honor to be on the show with you. I always love your opinion, so it's really great to be here this morning.
Oh, the honor's all mine as well. I dig your opinions also.
Thank you. Thank you.
Script is our fifth beater, our Alec Baldwin, what have you. He's always hanging around.
And we are, of course, also honored to be in such distinguished company as certified screenwriter, script doctor, and genuine filmmaker, Tom Konkle. So that's awesome. And I see from the chat that we have quite an international gathering following us today. We have Canberra, from Canberra to Adelaide in Silver Nova. McCarthy is also from Canberra. We have some from New York, and we even have Alexander Vidakovic from Republika Srpska. Dujaja. Just have to put that in there.
I have no idea.
Well, hail to the chat. Hello back.
And Tainted from Texas, and Andy Brown is here and wonders, are we ever on time? No, we are always.
Might be drunk, folks. I have no idea. I don't know what he's saying.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound slurred.
And we have Mills from South Africa, and Novobranek from Russia, and SSJ3 Jack Bauer from Saudi Arabia, and Conquer Jr. from Norway. Awesome. So we are quite well represented here.
Wow.
We are global here.
Yeah, we are indeed. It would be great if all of you around the world could help us out by clicking like, whether you like it or not. We'll see if we deserve it, and also if you could help share in social media that we are indeed live right now, because you kind of have to notice the time that we'll be live right around this time, probably a few minutes later. Don't trust notifications from YouTube, because they typically go out long after we have gone off air. So
yes. That, and what we will do, I'm going to throw the official Twitter handle for Midnight's Edge in the chat, and if you follow there, you'll definitely get updated on all the major streams here on Midnight's Edge. So,
with this audience, we have to say good morning, good evening, and good night all the time.
Yes, we do.
So we're spanning the globe here.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
Love it.
But yeah, it's been a heck of a week so far. We've had a lot of things go on in Hollywood. I know Andre's got a lot of stuff in store for us. We have a few other things in store as well if we get to them. So we'll see on that part. We got a lot to talk about here. And I'm glad we got Script and Tom to talk about it with us, because I'm sure they'll have a lot of insight, especially when it comes to Disney and HBO Max and all kinds of things like that. So let's get cracking. What do you say, Andre?
Yes, let's get to it. So, what do we have first, Tom?
That's what did you want to start with? We got
okay. You know what? Let's start with the industry at large, because right now, the entire industry they're a little bit worried about what's going on with the streaming, when are theaters going to open and stuff like that. But luckily, they have a scapegoat to turn all their ire towards. And that would be Warner, actually AT&T, but their outlet in the movie industry is Warner. And I believe that the Hollywood Reporter even had an article about that, with how angry everyone is at Warner for having the sheer audacity for putting everything in their 2021 slate straight to HBO Max. Oh, well, to be fair, it's day and date with HBO Max and a symbolic theatrical release, because really, it's going to go to theaters.
Yeah, I actually have a little animation for this.
Oh, awesome.
I hope you enjoy it.
Go it.
Listen up, big guy. I got 3 good reasons why you should just walk away. Number 1, look at that guy. He's got that sissy, stringy music thing.
We've been through this. It's a harp, and you know it.
Reason number 2, look what I can do.
What? What does that have to do with anything?
No. He's got a point.
Yeah, exactly. They have a point, and that's the key point.
I think that's going to lead into a lot of what we're going to talk about as far as what Disney's up to.
Indeed, we'll get back to what Disney is up to afterwards. But first, let us focus on Warner. And Tom, you probably have to increase your volume a tiny little bit.
Yeah, I've seen that. Hopefully, it's a little better now. I did work on that. Hopefully,
yeah,
you guys hear me better now?
That sounds better.
All right.
But gentlemen, so the entire industry is so angry at Warner. There's because one argument is that they're just doing this to promote HBO Max, which falls right into the well, duh category. But
I've only been saying that for how long? Yeah,
exactly. But Mr. Konkle, as someone in the industry, do all the agents and all the actors, do they have reason to be so angry as they are?
Yeah, I think they do. I'm just down the street from Warner Brothers. I've dealt with them. I completely understand the disconnect. The problem is everybody thinks that, people in Hollywood or whatever all talk to each other. And they really don't. And particularly since, there's a guy named Clorice who works, basically is supposed to be the liaison between a corporation like AT&T and Warner Brothers and the artists and the filmmakers and actors that make the movies. And the disconnect is they're not mad at the streamers in general. They're mad specifically at Warner Brothers. And the reason is Warner Brothers thinks leadership is having someone like Clorice in the back room with a couple of executives say, okay, all the people that thought they were making movies for us that could go out to various platforms and go in theaters, nope, we're going to make an executive decision and go ahead and put it on our own service. So the reason everyone's mad is it's self-dealing. It would be like if you're selling a house and the person who is representing you to get the best price is also the person who is trying to make the most profit off the price. They don't have your interest in mind. And I think
you mean like a realtor focusing more on the commission than the actual sale.
Yeah, exactly. And more importantly, people you think people just hear about it, but for example, Denzel Washington has a movie that he directed coming out in January, literally like the first thing that's going to drop on Warner Brothers. He found out about this, in a phone call. It's like, hey, by the way, your film that you made is not coming out in theaters. It's coming out next month. We haven't really had a chance to do any publicity because we fired everyone doing publicity. But hey, yours will be the test, before anyone really signs up. We'll go ahead and launch your new movie on there. So you can imagine how that went off without him even being able to go, well, let's take it out to the marketplace, see if we can get the best price for the movie. Shouldn't I have it on, I don't know, Hulu and that, or shouldn't we have it on another service? Nope. We're going to go ahead and sell it to ourselves, and we'll let you know what we think it would make. Well, you can imagine the ripples that happen. The problem is communication. The problem is it's not leadership to ignore the partners. The people that make the content, that make your company, should not be treated as an afterthought. And the problem is everyone has been by this move. Had this been handled delicately, where it's like, look, we're thinking about doing this. Would you have any ideas? What do you think about price? How do you think we make it? Can we keep making movies with you? Warner Brothers used to be the one safe haven, the one place for artists where you could go and make a movie and know that you were at least somewhat protected creatively. And now financially and creatively, you're working for a phone company.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean, I guess we're seeing the ripples of that. At the same time, I also see Warner Brothers' side of this, as I've been reporting, about the whole thing coming down. They've been desperate to get HBO Max off the ground, and in this upcoming kind of streaming war kind of battlefield coming up here, they need to be able to compete, and I see this as a strategic move. As far as like what they're paying all the other people involved, like I can understand that they'd be upset because Gal Gadot and I think Patty Jenkins were well taken care of for.
And that was genius. That was sheer genius. I want to get back to that.
But everybody,
I was
gonna say, but everybody wants that deal, and not everybody's going to get that deal.
Well, not only that, we're talking about back-end profit losses here. Now, there's a lot of movies where people are paid kind of upfront, and that's usually the goal, is you get paid now because you don't know if you're actually going to finish production, let alone get your movie out there to make whatever back-end deals you have. And here's the other argument that is kind of a little bit on AT&T's side, which is, well, what's the point in putting something into theaters if most of the theaters are closed? How are they going to see the product that we make anyways? So what's the safest bet? Put it on a streaming service. At least people can see it. You can get some reputation out of it. And then maybe that will, roll over into some other profits. But there's no guarantee on that. And that's why I think AT&T kind of dropped the ball, because there wasn't enough communication, or at least a proper line of communication to the creatives to say, hey, this is the situation right now. We want there to be theaters. We want there to also be a draw to our HBO Max platform. But given the situation, what do you think is more likely? You're going to make a movie that's going to be in theaters that no one can go out to see. It's going to hurt your reputation. Or you can put it on a streaming service where at least 8 million subscribers will see it. And hopefully they'll generate more interest, in which case those subscriber numbers go up, in which case the platform advertises your movie, which means more eyes are on it, and at least be able to stay in the conversation. And then they have to work out a back-end deal on points to translate that from what would have been a theatrical bonus to I guess a streaming one. Like, it's complicated, but you got to kind of have to look at the overall picture of it. And I don't think either side is really doing that.
No, I think oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think you're right, Script. The basic point is, had you said that 6 months ago to artists as Warner Brothers and had a dialogue about it 6 months ago because you knew you were going to do this, there would have been a very different rollout of this, because you could have worked out those deals. Because the old deals, the way it works is, let's say I'm in a movie. If that movie goes out to theaters and you make a certain amount of money, or it's at a certain budget point and you've worked it out, what I make to keep making movies and to make a living is based on that benchmark. But that benchmark doesn't include a streaming first rollout. It isn't in the contract. So basically, even the lowliest guy, the guy in the movie bringing coffee, well, now his residual schedule and his earning capacity is immediately undercut, because now it's a streaming release, which means it's like, oh, well, those are internet residuals. So you're going to make $14 instead of, $2,000. And that needs to be communicated to the people that give them content, because they feel ambushed when they're like, no, remember that plan we had and we gave you all that money? Yeah, we're not going to do that anymore.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that actually ties in nicely with the point I was going to bring up. I think it would have done well for AT&T or Kalar, whoever, like Script was saying, and then going to what you're saying, Tom, to come out and say, look, guys, and basically did like a public...
Tenet bombed. But basically,
do a public announcement saying, look, we can put these movies in theaters right now, or as scheduled, and they won't make dick, like we've already seen with Tenet and the few other films that have come out. So you're not going to see anything on your back end, right? So why don't you guys play nice with us right now? We'll give you a deal on what we would figure these movies would make, and we're going to send them to streaming, and everybody's happy. And that's the way they should have handled it. I get where Script's coming from. Because at the same time, you got to think about it. Like you were just saying, Tom, there's not going to be any residuals. Tenet proved that. That's right. There's no way any of these movies can make any kind of money in this kind of market right now. That basically, like to getting to what Andre was saying, I know we want to talk about it a little bit, but basically, they gave Gal Gadot and Patty Jenkins a fucking gift, because there is no way that movie was going to make $1 billion, even if theaters were open normally.
No,
I just don't see it.
Yeah, it was a last minute kind of damage control thing so that they wouldn't get bad mouthed by the first thing out of the gate.
And on top of that, we have to also. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Tom. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, you imagine Patty Jenkins, who is one of their, one of their good people, one of the people they want to keep working with. Well, she works for 2 years on a movie, gets ready to roll it out. It could be $1 billion movie. You can imagine the phone call where it's like, yeah, we're never going to release it in the theaters, or if we do, it probably won't make any money. So we're just going to put it up on our own streaming service, but you can't put it anywhere else. We want it exclusive. I hope that's okay. You can imagine how that would have gone down had they also said, oh yeah, and you're not going to have any profit participation. Obviously, we'll tell you how much we think the movie's going to make. That would have been the end of that relationship, and really the only thing a company like AT&T, Warner has is the relationship with people like her and Christopher Nolan and Denzel Washington, all the people that make the stuff that we watch. They feel like they have the quintessentially talent-friendly, filmmaker-friendly studio, and now Warner Brothers, the way it's looking, it's not the first place you go, wouldn't be the second. It may be the last place you want to go, because you think you're making one thing and then they turn around and self-deal to themselves and say, well, yeah, we think this is going to make maybe 200 million. So we'll give you that and for everything.
And that's exactly what I was actually going to get to, is the fact that a lot of these executives that work in the film side of things are straight out of business school and within their own pocket universe, so to speak. They don't have experience. They don't have understanding of different markets or anything. It's all in theories. And a lot of them get lucky, but most of them don't, which is why there's a lot of turnover. And we're seeing an example of a pure theoretical model that's based without understanding the human element of it, which is a big part of business. It's actually your first semester of business is about the human relationship. And then you forget about that because the remaining of the course is all about the deals and, the economics behind it. So these guys have forgotten their first term of what it means to do business with people, especially in a creative environment. And yeah, they're kind of messing around the whole infrastructure that they are charged with being responsible for.
I'm going to disagree a little bit. I think that they are very aware of the human element, and I think that is a very big reason why they gave specifically Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot the massive bonus and pretended that the movie was going to make $1 billion, which there was, I agree, based on the early reviews and everything that we reported about the story is completely true. It's horribly true, all of it.
Yeah.
There's no way in hell that movie would ever make $1 billion. However, by pretending that it did and paying out their bonuses and residuals as if it did, no one can accuse them of lowballing. And let's get into the human element. No one can accuse them of screwing over a female director and the female star, because that would have been the headlines. And I think that Stanky and Kilar are very, very well aware of that, which would be why that movie and that alone is the one that got this treatment. Whereas everyone else, you're mostly males and mostly white male at that, so no one's going to feel so sorry for you. So we changed the terms of the deal as per our contract says that we can do. Pray we don't alter it further. That's kind of like what
I would say I reconcile that with politics as opposed to people. Like they understood. They probably would understand the people, but they knew the optics of the politics of what would happen if they
exactly. But that means that they understand the people behind the Twitterati.
Yes.
And they know that in doing this, then they cannot use this against us. Then we have the whole industry against us, and that's fine. That's a very, very different thing from having Gal Gadot and Patty Jenkins against them. Because if they're able to silence those two, then everyone else. There was a comment that I highlighted earlier, which basically said that so Warner is treating them like they've treated us. And I think that outside of the industry, I don't know how much sympathy that these actors and directors are going to get. Because of course they had their deals and everything. But you know who also had deals? The working men, that for instance for Disney, like the 30,000 people that they just fired, people under the line, that don't get any bonus, they don't get any box office proceed or anything like that. And in the immense recession that we're going to go into, I do not know that many people will have all that much sympathy with like an A-list director saying that I should have gotten 200 million for this and I only got 50. Like, I'm not saying that necessarily.
True, but then again, that
True,
perception
that's
that,
gonna
that
be
money is flowing, you know, when you get that kind of money, you're not, you know, when you say a $200 million sale, that's not going to a person, that's going to a vast infrastructure around that person. And I think that's also a perception of.
Yeah, that's why the agents are up in arms, because this costs them.
Yeah, it costs them money. It costs the teams around the people money. You know, if you know, half of that goes to taxes, and that, you know, I don't disagree with your point that, you know, the general boots on the ground audience people, you look at people that are millionaires and you don't care. The thing that we have to consider, though, is these are the engines that are driving a content only company like Warner Brothers. And what I find on the inside of the industry is, let's say this. Let's say I was seriously thinking about putting together a deal and I finance myself 75% of the film. So let's say I find the money, I find, you know, $80 million to make my science fiction film, and Warner Brothers picks it up. They put in the additional, say, 25%. Okay, so I have 75% and they put in 25%. But I'm on the line for that much money, for $80 million myself that I put up that I have to pay back and I'm paying interest on. So I make the film. So with this scheme, let's say I finished the film and I go back to the company that I made the deal with to put it in the theater and then put it on streaming, and then the world changed. Well, now they come back to me and they say, well, I know you paid for 75% of the film, but we see that Netflix wanted to buy your film for $250 million. We're going to block that sale, which they're allowed to do because they're, you know, have a contract. We're going to block that sale and we'll go ahead and offer you $150 million. I know you've already paid 80, so really your profit is just going to be that. And you can't take it anywhere else. And that's exactly what's happened. It just happened with Godzilla versus Kong, where, you know, Netflix was like, okay, you know, we'll buy it for 225. And a company that has a deal with Warner Brothers, like Legendary Pictures, well, they finance 75% of it. So they're like, all right, maybe we can at least make our money back, pay the interest, pay off all the people that need to be paid, and keep the infrastructure. Well, you know what happened? Warner Brothers said no. And they said, no, you can't sell it for more money to someone else. You still have to deal with us. We'll go ahead and release it, but, you know, we can block the sale. We only paid for, you know, 25% of it. And we'll tell you, we'll give you about $150 million. So that means the entire profit on that was about $40 million on a film that could have made $500 million. That's the problem. Because it's not just going to just a few people, it's going to the entire infrastructure of Legendary Pictures. It's going to everybody who does marketing, distribution. That money is diluted over thousands of jobs. So now if you know a movie that you spent $80 million on can only ever make $150 million on a streamer, and you can't take it to another streamer for years, do you still have a business?
Well, let's look at it this way, though, too, Tom. And I do understand where you're coming from, and that makes sense.
Absolutely, I understand it completely.
Yeah, but like, and at the same time, I think that Legendary has to understand that Warner Brothers would be getting whatever portion of that and all that kind of stuff too. And out of that Netflix deal, how much would Legendary really be going home with? I think that's what Warner's is doing, is giving them the portion that they would have gotten from that deal. And I don't think legally they can go anywhere under that. And that's another thing that keeps coming up, is the legal questions. And we've heard some people talk about illegal this and threatening this and that and the other, but I don't think they really can. I haven't seen any cease and desist come in. I haven't heard of any like actual legal action being taken yet. And I brought that up when we first started talking about this, Andre, and I think you said the same thing, is like, surely AT&T has a legion of lawyers that went through this shit like with a fine-tooth comb. And that's what I think we're seeing. And to Tom, what you were just saying is we're seeing a lot of people who are upset that, granted, they may be in a situation where they're going to have to take a little bit less, or in their perceived deal they have now, maybe taking less, but I don't know if that's necessarily the case. And I just see a lot of people being butthurt that are going to come back around later and realize that Warner Brothers is the place they got to be, or, you know, their only other choices are Disney and other streamers. And Warner's might be a little bit better to work with in the end than the other guys. Because, I mean, like Andre pointed out, I'm going at like, okay, they gave Gal Gadot $10 million. To me, that probably tells me she probably had 10% back end points on the movie, and they just figured it was going to make $1 billion, so they gave her cool 10. That's my guess on that. That's where I'm getting that number from.
Right.
And then I think they're going to probably play that same kind of game across the board. Now, is it fair? I don't know. That's going to be in the eye of the beholder, and right now the eyes of the beholders don't see it as very fair. But then again, you got to look at who are the people that are complaining, and that's something that we've talked about before too. And you don't hear many, if any, producers complaining unless they're, filmmakers themselves, like Christopher Nolan, and stuff like that. Right. But then you have the other side of it where I brought up the point, like, look at guys like David Fincher and Scorsese who have already learned that streaming is the way to go. Their last two films, their last two big movies have went straight to Netflix.
Oh, absolutely. And that's exactly to my point. They knew they were making a movie for streaming. They knew when they made the deal that Irishman or Fincher's film Mank was going to be a streaming movie. The problem with this is, if I put up 75% of my money for a movie and I think I might have a $700 million, $1 billion movie.
I get that. Yeah.
Yeah. Then the problem is Warner has the power to block a sale and does every time. And then when the studio, like Legendary, you go to the studio and you say, are you going to give me a deal to stream the movie? And then your phone rings on December, something, and they go, yeah, by the way, it's going to be day and date in the theater. And it's like, well, are we going to negotiate what it is? And like, no. So what's going to happen is, Village Roadshow and the guy Braun who put up all the money with Legendary, they're going to be aggrieved, and they're going to say, shouldn't you have talked to us, like told us we were making a streaming movie?
Well, here's the other issue that's been floating around Hollywood that a lot of filmmakers kind of gloss over, I would say respectfully, is that for the last 30 years, you may be making a movie for theaters, but its life lives at home. And that's the other thing, what a lot of film directors, especially up-and-coming ones, fail to realize is that sometimes your fan base is not going to be able to see your movie in theaters. They're going to catch it on video on demand, on streaming, on VHS, whatever. It might get cult status. That's where the movie survives, and that's where you don't get as much back-end profit. But I mean, that's where you get your reputation built up from.
Absolutely, I don't disagree. The long tail life is there. My point is this, though: the structure that's been there for the last 30, 40 years is why do you think we have a now in theaters category in Hulu or Netflix? The fact that the movie plays in a movie theater gives legitimacy to a movie. It also raises its profile. Even if you don't go see it, the fact that it's an event, that it's a finite period of time that it's in the theater, that's what drives news stories about it. Because if you could do a news story about a movie that's going to be there 2 years from now, there's no urgency to it opening. You'd be like, hey, I'll cover it in October. Or for a movie like Dune, it does make a difference that it played in a traditional big release, because that's essential to the film getting talked about at one time. You notice that the difference this year is there isn't an event. There used to be a movie coming out every week and there was something new to talk about. But now with it on streaming, there's no urgency to any of it. Everything's premiering at any time and you can talk about it any time. I could send a movie that I put up on a streaming service in May. I could send it out as a press release now and go, hey, you want to review my movie and take a look at it? What's the difference?
No, you're absolutely right, because the premiere is very important because that's the prestige, right? That's the social gathering. That's the event
and that's
that
what
gets
drives
the advertisement
conversation. If Dune drops on a streaming service and the attitude is, well, I'll get to it a couple months from now, how is that going to differentiate a movie like Dune that needs money to continue or to do part 2 of Dune? How do you look at the metrics and go, well, there's a lot of interest over the last year, bunch of people saw it.
It's hard to make an event about something you can do at home, right? It loses that opportunity. The other part too is that a lot of the film producers, especially some that I know, lose the opportunity to hook up with a girl when there's no premiere.
Exactly.
So there's that part as well. So there's lots of reasons for them to be upset. The fact of the matter is that what's bad about streaming is something that they should probably consider in the future is they should make event releases on streaming, something that makes it kind of important, where it's like this one weekend we're going to stream it, then we're not going to show it for like another week or so because we want to highlight the value of this thing, and then
what
just
HBO Max
dish it out.
is doing, even though it's by a month. And that's where I say, like, as far as this whole like tit for tat thing with everybody going on right now in the streaming wars, I think HBO got the upper hand with this, even though they may be upsetting some of the, and this will kind of wrap everything up. We're kind of talking, I think, kind of nicely in a bow. Even though they're upsetting some of the talent, I do feel like a lot of that talent's going to come back around. And again, I feel like a lot of it was just the way that AT&T handled this. And if they would have just come out and said, look, this movie is not going to make any money in the theaters. We're doing you a favor right now by trying to work this out with you. It would have come across better than the way they're doing it. Because the way Tom is explaining it is the way they're doing it. And I could totally see where from the other side of things, like you can see you're being taken advantage of. Yeah. But at the same time, like I just pointed out, like, in some ways, AT&T would have done themselves a favor by saying, look, we are doing you guys a favor right now because there's no way in the next few months any of these theaters are going to be open. AMC's pretty much dead. Regal's dead. Where are these movies going to go? You're not going to make any money on the back end. So you're better off just trying to work something out with us right now. And in the same process, yeah, we're building HBO Max. We get it. It's not a secret anymore.
And they still have that limited international market too. Like there's places throughout Europe and other countries that don't have the streaming service, so it has to be theaters. So they're still getting their theatrical, but again, it's not the same. It's not.
It depends on what kind of deals they have.
Yeah, an international release does not generate press here. And I think the funniest plot twist of all would be, let's say the vaccine works, and by June, people are out and socializing again, or at least feeling that they can. And Universal sits on something and releases through Cinemark, and it ends up being $1 billion release in a theater over the summer. You can imagine the phone calls that Warner Brothers will get if someone releases something and the vaccine has been worked and people start socializing again, and all of a sudden there's a movie that breaks out and makes all this money in the theater in direct ticket sales. It depends on who blinks. It could not go that way, but if it does go that way, that would be quite a plot twist.
In an ideal
world, it would be
world,
quite a plot twist.
But
the other part too. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tom.
Well, I'll just say I don't know if that is going to happen, because that'll almost lead us into the Tom Cruise bit almost. Just because I'm not so sure the world's going to be ready, and there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be resistant to taking any kind of vaccines. So I don't know how things are going to go, just like everybody else. And I think Warner's playing the long game here. I really feel like that they know things are not going to clear up anytime soon. And I know you're right, Tom, to a point. It could happen that way, and ideally it will. But I don't know if I can be optimistic enough to see that happening.
Yeah, no,
the other part too
for sure. But yeah, carry on.
Well, the other part too is that a lot of the negotiations of the contracts during the, before they're greenlit, it deals with streaming. So really, they're just kind of deferring to the next tier. But I think with this action that AT&T took, a lot of companies and agencies and managers and whatnot are going to start looking a lot closer at those contracts to make sure that they're able to get a better deal in the event of a day and date type of release of this nature in the future. They have to, because it is about what you can negotiate for the value of what you're creating. And I think what ended up happening here is that these movies, a lot of them were all, kind of locked into contracts 2 years ago, and they were not expecting this. And I even think if, you have those act of God events that they have in there, it's still not going to cover the situation that we're present with now. So yeah, like basically AT&T may have done everything legally correct, but is it ethical? Was it fair? Is the fact that you have actors like Robert Downey Jr., who's got Team Downey, his production company that has a few hundred people working for it, and when he gets those $50 million paychecks, he's only really getting 25, and that 25, most of that's going into his production company to keep those staff,
that is
employed. Like nobody gets it all themselves. Like even when Jim Carrey's, got that first $20 million deal, that wasn't all to him. That was to some of the people that work in his team as well. Like they're also job creators.
Yeah, he has a team of producers, and he has managers, and he employs a bunch of people. Stars, the people around a movie star or an actor who's also a producer, the people around them it is in their vested interest to keep that person employed or to protect that person and create a job, because the job for that person affects everyone from the caterer and the person who does their dry cleaning to their team in the office to all of that. The misconception here is that somehow, they're just kind of, wringing their hands and going, I made $50 million. But the reality is it went to managers and producers and crew and all the people that make that person. They're an industry. You have to think about it like a product. And what's happened in this could happen in the business that any one of our listeners is in. If you're working for someone and you feel like that person is not communicating, they're not telling you what's going on, but they expect you to keep doing the same job for way less money, or they change the deal overnight and go, hey, as Andre said, pray we don't change it again. Well, if you were at work and you felt that was going on, you'd have a problem. You know, artists are just like that. It's a business. It's people. It's humans. And you don't like it when you wake up and you find out, no, you know, what we said we were going to do, we're not going to do. And we're not going to communicate. We're not going to include you in the decision making. Leadership is not that. Leadership would be picking up the phone, finding out what they want to do. How do you feel about Dune coming out that way? How can we work together? It's not just dictating from the top down. Well, you know, we're going to take a giant loss and we've decided you're the thing we're going to lose money on.
Actually, that's how it is for most working people. That's exactly how it is. They
And that's
get
not right.
from the I'm not saying it's right.
Yeah.
I'm saying that's how it is.
Yeah, and I'm saying that we need to fundamentally change that.
That's how it is.
Yeah, we need to.
They are unilaterally informed. We are taking a loss, and that means you're taking a far greater loss relative to your situation.
And that's just wrong. That's what I agree with you. That's not the way to make a sustainable economy or a sustainable business environment. The best environments are inclusive environments, are ones where decisions are made getting input from the people that actually do the work.
Indeed. Indeed.
And as PRRK4 says with this super chat, and we'll loop back around to the ones we got first right after this one, I think, and get into the next part of our conversation here. Asks, do you think Warner will be sued for undue enrichment over this mess? Maybe, but I doubt it, or at least if they do, I don't know if anybody can have anything standing, because they're like,
I don't know if they can prove undue enrichment.
Yeah, that's the tough part, is you have a problem here where we're in a situation that A, nobody could have predicted, B, that's kind of like unlike anything we've dealt with in modern times. So there's going to be a lot of ways that people are going to get through loopholes and other things. And again, I really feel like AT&T probably had their army of lawyers go through this thing with a fine-tooth comb. So as much as people are upset and barking about suing, I don't know if they're really going to have any grounds to stand on as long as the movie's released in theaters. I don't know. Because like even the whole thing with Christopher Nolan, I highlighted that one comment just a few seconds ago, but I can't find it now, of course, as usual. But basically what I was going to say to that is I think we learned that the only reason Tenet did go to theaters is not because of Nolan's insistence, but because of Legendary's deal.
As well, yeah. Both of them.
Yeah, it needed that theatrical release to drive interest in it. It also drove it was in the contract. That's what they agreed to. And they went too soon with it, obviously. You know, if Tenet came out at the same time next year, the results would be different, but it came out when it did, and it didn't do very well here. It did okay internationally, and it'll make its money eventually, but that was the thing. The idea that, if you're dealing with a company that's self-dealing and is acting in bad faith and you can prove it, then you have a legal case. If you can't prove it, as you say, you can't do it. But what will happen is something that is more important, which is tarnishing your reputation with communicating with the people that are making your company rich. And those people are the people that put up the money and make the content that they're using. If they have to think twice before they deal with Warner, someone else will profit from this. They will go somewhere else. They will find another place they can go.
The one question is, though, how many other places are there to go? And we'll get back into that. But first, we have a couple of super chats to go through. I want to hear what you have to say. First off today, KitKat sent us £2 British super chats. So with a 1-up. So thanks for that. Sontar says, I nominate Raging Golden Eagle for Midnight's Edge anime panelist.
That's probably not a bad idea. We've had him on After Dark and stuff like that. I'll talk to him, see what he thinks of that.
Yeah,
that's not a bad idea. Maybe.
And we got from Mr. Tickle Trunk, we got both a super sticker of a unicorn and a super chat with no text that I can see. But thanks for the support. I'm sure you'll have plenty more to say in the chat. And Cedric Taylor 08 also sent us 2 consecutive super chats for a total of $10. Thank you so much. That's how we keep the lights on here. The first one says, "Is there going to be a new Star Trek? I heard they're trying to get the crew back together." Yeah, they've been trying to get the crew back together since 2016.
Yeah, years.
But that's ironic you say that. I don't know if that's bouncing off that article I sent you this morning, Andre. Or what.
Probably about like how Pine is saying he would love to do the Tarantino thing or something, right?
You know what that's from? Is somebody, he was in the press junket for Wonder Woman 84. Someone asked him about it, and he said, "Yeah, I'd love to do that," which is just the political answer.
It's towing the line. And on top of that, too, of course, he'd love to do that. He has a higher asking price now. So,
Well, yeah, and who wouldn't want to work with Tarantino?
Yeah, of course. And he better like get it right now before reviews and like audience reviews on Rotten Tomatoes comes out. So yeah, absolutely.
I don't think they'll have anything bad to say about Pine from that movie, but they
No,
may have a
not
lot of
about
other
him.
stuff.
But, yeah, exactly. He's probably the highlight of it, so it wouldn't surprise me. But yeah. So anyway, don't get too excited for a Star Trek 4 with the original or with Kelvin crew just yet. Let us say.
I think Emma Watts has made it pretty clear that Star Trek is not bound for theaters anytime soon, or at least not on a high budget.
Yeah, they're going to stream. They're going to think about streaming, series and maybe limited series with it. But I think she's refocusing where it's going to end up and it may not be bad for Star Trek if they get the right people to do it. Is that the original appeal of Star Trek? Is we got to know the characters through many, many episodes that allowed for a kind of character development you simply can't do in a 2-hour film. But you need to have the right series doing the right thing with two things. You have to have appealing characters, and it has to be a Star Trek set story. It has to be a positive look at a federation that is aspirational, and it has to have great stories that have a great little morality play buried inside some great fun adventure and concepts. And they don't have that yet. They need to, go back, retcon the whole thing, and then maybe 10 years from now, they'll fall in love with a new Star Trek series because we know the characters and we like them. But they're nowhere near that now.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, so that's all there is to say about that. And moving on to the second super chat from Cedric Taylor, there he said, they're going to choke out streaming and go back to pay-per-view table, the new theater. No, wait, going back to pay-per-view to be the new theater.
Don't count that out. That's what I was saying for a while, and we already saw Disney try that with Mulan, and even though that seemed like a disaster, they have let it be known that they're going to try it again, and I wouldn't be surprised if something like Black Widow is the thing they try it with.
Yeah, I think you're right, Tom. The only thing it's akin to is buying a ticket at a movie theater. It's the only way to really judge who's buying for specifics, unlike, just a subscription. At least you're buying a quote unquote, a virtual ticket to a particular movie, and you can change the price. You can make one, a movie that was 20 years ago can cost different, a different amount than this movie because this movie is brand new. It's like, there's a reason psychologically why we used to have a new release wall at Blockbuster. I used to do this thing. I'd crack myself up doing it. I would go up to the wall, and it's psychological for people. I would take an old movie. I would take like Lawrence of Arabia, and I would put it on the new release shelf and stand there. And inevitably, some woman would come over and she'd hold up a Jean-Claude Van Damme film and that film, and she'd go, "Which one of these is newer?" And I'd say, "Oh yeah, Lawrence of Arabia. I think it just came out. And she would rent that. That would be what she'd rent."
Oh no, I remember they used to do that when I came back from LA after my first summer, and I had an apartment that was right across the street from a Blockbuster Video. That particular store would have the middle row of every single bay of the new release wall with old classics that were like associated with the same genre of what came out, and those rows would always be empty because people would pick them over the massive quantities of the current movies.
And that differentiation is exactly what a theatrical release used to be. And as you guys were just saying, that a premium release, you go, "Oh, okay, well, this is $5 more. Is this new? Is this something I want to see?" And that's where you make your money. It's called TVOD, Transactional Video on Demand, and it pretty much almost died, especially for independent filmmakers a couple of years ago. It's like, when's the last time you bought an independent film on Amazon? Say, it doesn't have anybody I really recognize. It's a little indie film, but I'll go ahead and drop $4.99. No, that doesn't happen. They wait for it to come on Prime streaming, or you have it streaming. So if it comes back, it would be a way to at least have a digital ticket purchased, maybe. But of course, the price point's going to be all over the place, and you have to figure out like what's too much, what's too little. Can you make a movie that cost $200 million and make the money back on transactional video on demand? How many people will buy it on Amazon knowing they don't really own it? It's just a really long rental.
Well, that's going to be the big question. And that's why I was saying, like, people don't be surprised if one of the next Avengers movies, you end up having to pay $50-$60 to rent right away. And I mean rent, not buy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but we have a couple more super chats before we get back to the next main topic. Roger Haynes sent us a super sticker with the thumbs up, so thanks for that. Novo Branek, maybe it's Novo Branec, sends for 100 Russian rubles. Thank you so much. Will Death of Theater be its renewal? It will be an event to go to movies again, not a pastime. Theaters will do more to attract people. And then he followed that up with another 100 rubles super chat saying, here in Russia, small company that does retrospectives in a few theaters won big by releasing Blade Runner 1982 this year. So yeah, now when we have those two, Mr. Konkle, your thoughts?
Yes, I think those are terrific thoughts. I think we can all agree that the idea that you have an event, that you have a thing in your mind that you go to, that it was special. I think the recollection when you go see a movie and it's an event that could help theaters a lot, because let's face it, we remember the most our movie experience when we're not sitting in the living room or with something. We remember the day I went to go see this film and I sat in the back to the right and my friends talked about it afterwards. We went to go see it. You cannot replace that feeling. So maybe the death is the renewal in that it will be more special. We all miss it already. I mean, I know if I could have gone to a movie or something over the holidays, I would have gone. That's where I fell in love with movies. And those are the things you remember. You don't remember the sameness. If it, like you said, if a routine, it's like you could sit and watch 5 films in your living room. You're not going to remember as much as the time you got together with, 3 of your best friends. You went to go see a movie you've been dying to go see and you experienced it with an audience. That's something that your brain is programmed to remember more. And I'm glad, doing a retrospective and showing something like Blade Runner, and parents can take their kids to go see it and experience it on a big screen. That's the magical part of it. The more common, a television is an appliance, and a movie theater is an experience.
No, that's a great point, and we've seen a lot of these re-releases over the past couple of years. As the studios do 4K scans, they got to amortize the cost somehow. Yeah. So they'll re-release the film in theaters in a limited release, and it helps pay for that. And they manage to stay alive throughout this whole thing by the re-releasing of movies like Empire Strikes Back and
exactly
all that
which
kind of
did
stuff.
Really well. A lot of people went to go see it. It's a movie that people have seen 100 times, but it's still more fun to see it even sitting in a car with your friends or with your family and experiencing it as a night.
Yep.
Oh, it is. And I think it's not just going to be theaters. If we do ever return to normality, I think we're going to be seeing people like renting out like dance halls for birthday parties and anything they can find an excuse just to get people together because we've been robbed of that for the past 10 months.
Yes.
So I think it's going to be across the board. And to your point, I would say, yeah, I do have a lot of memorable experiences in theaters, but some of the movies that I fell in love with as a kid, I saw on a television with my friends at the time, and we did have almost the exact same experience response because it was mostly the content that we talked about. Everything else around that was kind of irrelevant because, again, we're kids. We're focused on whatever's, any keys that are dangling in front of us at the time. But like as I got older, I kind of appreciated the theater experience a little bit more, especially for when I used to do this thing where The Room, this terrible indie film, would go on like a theater tour throughout either Ontario, British Columbia, California. I would go to that and I wouldn't watch the movie. I'd be watching the audience because for many of them it's going to be their first time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like it's similar to the Rocky Horror. Rocky Horror is way more entertaining overall, but like The Room is, you watch it mainly for the audience because it's their reactions that are making the experience far more enjoyable than the actual film, and I loved doing that. So
yes, I think you make a great point. That's why humans have been going to theater for literally hundreds and hundreds of years, is that there is still no different. There's a very big difference between experiencing it in your living room, and I'm sure you did have some great experiences watching it with your friends, but there is something about experiencing it with other people and an energy, that you are diminished without. I did maybe 100 live shows in my life, and there's nothing more electric than when the audience is it becomes its own entity, and you feed off its energy, and they know they're seeing something that will never be shown exactly the same way, the same night again, and you're having a dialogue with them. Or you go to my most amazing movie experience ever was at a Laemmle Theater the first time I ever showed the feature I did. And I had watched that thing so much I was sick of it. And I snuck into the back of the theater for its premiere at a festival. And I watched it with an audience for the first time. And I absolutely will never forget how every line, everything that you thought might work, everything that was there suddenly did. And it was like I had never seen the movie before in my life. And I didn't even realize how the rooms felt in the movie. Like, I was like, wow, that set feels like I can feel that room. I can experience it. And I remember it years later because I was so inside of it that I didn't get to experience it the way someone would in a theater. And suddenly I had my eyes open. I was like, that's why we've been doing this for 100 years.
And not only that, the communal aspect of it is that it breaks down the walls of strangers. You're seeing people you don't know respond to something similar to how you would with regards to what's playing before you, whether it's theater, stand-up comedy, or movies. And that's something that kind of reminds us that our differences are valuable, but there's a core similarity to all of us.
I think you're absolutely right. Myths are not told hiding in the closet. They're told by people gathered around a campfire, experiencing the myth, experiencing the story together. You don't sit alone somewhere in a corner and create stories or myths or pass them on. You gather around something. Even in primitive times, this is how it was done. Cave drawings exist so that everyone could see them. They don't exist because some guy somewhere put a little drawing on a rock hoping nobody would see it.
Yeah, I don't want to be like the downer or the pessimistic here, but I think things are going to change for a while, unfortunately. Because script and will back me up for what I say. I've been one of the ones champion. Theaters need to exist, studios need them. They're going to last as long as this thing doesn't drag on. But this thing has drug on so far. And with what HBO has done now and with everything that's happening, I do feel like the major movie theater going experience is going to die off for a little while. Now we're going to keep things like the Alamo Draft Houses and a lot of these drive-ins and stuff that have had revivals, and some of the independent theaters and stuff like that that are doing the premium experience will hang around. But I feel like it's going to be a while before we see a movie that's really going to blow open theaters again. And we're going to need something like a Star Wars or a Jaws or something to that effect that is going to kind of get it. And it's not going to be Avatar 2.
No,
I mean, I brought it up before. It's either going to be like Tarantino's last quote in quotations movie, or but another thing I brought up because people have brought up animation before. Maybe it'll be when the person that I said will bring back 2D animation releases his movie. Who knows?
Yeah, I think you're right. But
there's this mythical person out there. Yeah.
You make a great point, though. The environment by which you could have a Star Wars in the 70s is that there was unlimited possibility one way or another how it could go. You could risk, $23 million on a movie like Star Wars in the 70s because it could be a breakout hit and surprise everybody, and it did. And as we clamp down and quantify and do that, we have to create an environment where you can have a breakout hit. You can have unexpected profits. You can have all these things, and communication is the key to that. Warner Brothers has to create an environment where if I was a young George Lucas and I've got my film, it has to feel comfortable that I can take that film to them and there's some chance that it will break out and I will get to make movies the rest of my life because it did well. I can't have an environment where they're like, oh, it's 23? Okay, we'll give you 40 and that's it. and then it's just another thumbnail on a thing that you scroll by 100, 500 different movies, and that's it. It's like, oh, it dropped last Thursday.
No,
and
I
I've
mean,
had that experience. I've done projects where without a big, rollout and without big support from it, it just drops, and that's it. It's just another widget.
No,
Exactly.
and I'm glad.
Not to interrupt or anything, but to move it on to the most to a very related subject matter that also has to do with the next super chat from Silver Nova. Will most actors have to take pay cuts in the future? If so, do you think the Actors Guild will take any action? It's very interesting that you mentioned that, because, Tom, we have a story from the Wrap, don't we, as pertains to what Disney are doing right now with pay contracts.
Yeah, I don't have it up with me right now, but that was kind of what I was going to kind of bring up anyway, was just that, we just have this situation where across the board, things are going to have to change for budgets. And let me see if I can bring up this article you're talking about here. Hang on.
Because basically the gist of it is that they are exploring new talent deals that would make provisions for if the movies that were intended to go theatrical ends up going to straight to streaming instead, in this case to Disney Plus. And that would be kind of what you were suggesting, Mr. Konkle, wouldn't it? That if Warner had done this or had the conversation 6 months ago before doing this now, then they would be in a different place as pertains to being the punching bag of the industry. And Disney is now
I think
appears to be doing just that they're now starting to come up with new deals. So that they're still changing the deal every bit as much as Warner did, but they're giving some more advance notice. Not just so you know, we changed it already, but rather we're
exactly.
changing
That's not leadership.
We're changing it as soon as you sign this contract. So you have the illusion of free will in the matter.
Exactly. Like if you and I had a company together, we would, Andre and I would go and say we love movies. So we start a company to make movies. You and I would turn around and say, look, this is the landscape and here's how it's changing. If you feel like you win and we win and we have an equitable situation, you're going to attract the very best. It's like working at Pixar. You get the very best and brightest because they have your back. When you do something like this, it creates doubt and uncertainty in the people that are doing a deal. The reason you have contracts is for when things go wrong, not when everything's going right. It's just like a marriage contract. You don't need it when you're in love and everything's great, but you need the prenup when you break up. And I think the problem is context. Like you said, Disney is handling it more delicately and doing it with more aplomb as far as talking to the people that provide, that make Disney what Disney is, which are the people that create things. By doing that, it creates, even though it's a raw deal sometimes, and yes, you are going to see huge pay cuts and maybe people will just simply make less movies and less product, or at least have less resources. And that's not always a bad thing. You can be very creative with very little. I'm like, hey, throw me some things. I've been making as much as I can with little my whole life as far as art. So I'm fine with that. But it's how you handle it. As you say, it's a business aesthetic that maybe needs to change along with the rest of the social aesthetics. Is, look, if we're going to do this, we can't send out a memo after the fact and claim that's leadership.
And what about the guilds? Do you think that they're going to go along with it? And do they even have much choice in the matter?
I'm in the guilds, and I think the problem with the guilds is they are very behind the curve on technology. For a long time, the running joke was, hey, we got our new contract. We're getting more DVD residuals this year. And that would be in 2018. But I think the problem is streaming has been treated as the rented redheaded stepchild distribution for years, and so the guilds were very unconcerned for many years about any residuals or being able to make enough money so you can make your next movie off of streaming. In fact, for a long time, even in commercials, if it ran on internet, you would get maybe a small flat fee and there were no residuals at all. And so that's very gradually changed, and now it needs to change a lot faster, because if there's no such thing as a big, wide release of a movie, you've got to have something where everyone down to the lowliest extra gets some kind of pay beyond what would be internet residuals or internet usage fees, because what it will do is simply make the realm of the amateur. You know, you'll find someone who's a dentist who thinks it would be fun to be in a movie, but certainly couldn't make a living at it. So they'll do that and be a dentist and not really focused on what they're doing. And that's bad for a company, because what it means is you're getting nothing but people that don't treat it as a profession or treat it as a business, because it doesn't have a money path that makes any sense. You know, it's not just stars. It's the people that stars have to talk to in movies that also need to make a living.
Indeed. Yeah, that's kind of some stuff. So, what do you think of this whole situation then with Marvel and new talent, Script Doctor? Let's hear from you.
I think it was inevitable. I mean, the basic principle of what most guilds do is they make sure their clients get their minimums and get their residuals. When it comes to actors like Robert Downey Jr., it's more they're negotiating with him, and they don't really need to worry about the guilds, because it's make or break with him, because he's the name, he's the draw, he can set his own deals. But we have an example of this right now. We have a young, possibly talented Canadian actress who is going to be playing the new Miss Marvel in their Disney Plus series, who's had zero experience, as far as we can tell, actually performing. So she is going to have a very low deal. Mm-hmm. And that's to Disney's advantage, because if that show does well, Disney's going to see way more of the profits than anything this young woman is going to see. And if that ends up being something she can roll over into a career, she may get advantage of that later on. But for the time being, where she is, she's not going to get that much. And it goes back to the older model of, like, in TV, when you start out, you start out for the union minimums. And if you do well and you're a breakout star, that's when you can exceed above that. And that's where TV made movie stars, as opposed to just being a movie star, or at least come the 60s and so forth on. Same thing might be happening with streaming as well. And Disney also is notorious, actually, for starting actors, from the Mickey Mouse Club, and then building them up to be these powerhouse star runners for their shows and their products. So I can see them trying to repurpose that model for their streaming service, because it was successful for them on their television service and their cable shows. And I think that, I mean, economically, it's a smart thing. You don't want to have to spend a ton of money on a streaming show. If you can get away with anything cheaper, you go for that. And I mean, it's just an inevitability. I wish I could say, like, it's a bad idea, but I mean, part of me is thinking, no, it's probably a good idea, because you get fresh eyes, fresh talent, options, but you also have a risk of maybe that fresh eyes or fresh talent is not going to be at the quality you need for that show to really take off. So and that's with every production that you have to deal with. Like, there's always that risk. So, it's outside
well, that's the
of
problem. As you know, Disney is notoriously cheap to try to get as much as they can. Yeah, and they tried to offer Robin Williams scale for Aladdin. I mean, they are shameless about trying to maximize profit. And so you're right. I think it's great for, new creative people to come in if there's an opportunity if you're the cheaper option, then it's very helpful to you. If you're an established person that brings value to their company, you don't want to be treated like the cheaper option, because you have made them a lot of money. And I think all of that needs to be looked at, renegotiated. Maybe we need to shorten the cycle that these contracts are negotiated, because the world, as we've all said, is changing so quickly that maybe these long-term contracts need to be looked at, because the world they were negotiated in is gone.
Yeah, indeed. It is. Let's go through some more super chats.
One thing I do want to say, because what I think this means is that Black Widow's coming to streaming.
You know what I think? I think that they were going to announce it was going to streaming in on Investor Day last Thursday, and they changed their mind in the last moment because of the whole Warner thing and all the crap they did. I think that they decided, you know what? If we put Black Widow into streaming right now, we're just gonna bail them out, because then we're going to face all of this wrath too. So we're still going to put it straight to streaming, but we're not going to announce it for another 2 months. That's what I think. Like, I don't know this.
Yeah, but that's what you were saying the other day too, and I agree. Yeah. Yep.
No, I think Andre's right. I think they dodged a bullet by handling it better, by going, you know what? Let's table that. Let's see how Wonder Woman does. I don't know if they're sitting on a good movie or a bad movie. I don't know, but as a move, they didn't blink. So that was interesting to see. And perhaps, because it was an anticipated film, maybe they're looking at the lay of the land and figuring out what is the best way to release it to fans and to people that want to see it, but perhaps not hitting the panic button and just dumping it on their service, hoping to get, move the needle a little bit in subscribers.
And it also showcases a little bit of lack of foresight for Warner Brothers, because we knew about this investors announcement for a while now. Warner Brothers literally could have dropped their whole 2021 slate 2 days after that, and Disney would already be stuck by saying,
I thought the same
Black
thing.
Widow is still going to streaming.
Yeah, exactly. Again, no aplomb, no diplomacy, no finesse, because if again, people don't talk to each other here in Hollywood. The illusion is that we're all talking to each other and we're all friends, but it's really all just little fiefdoms with walls around them. And they probably were like, wait, when was there? Oh, we probably shouldn't have talked. Oh, I didn't know that. It's like Disney announced. You're right. They should have done it after that. But again, they did it in a bubble where there was no consideration as to how it would come off to the people that love movies and want to see them, but also the people that make the movies. And they didn't even do it at the right time.
Well, yeah, leave it to the execs not to know the ability of how to abstract.
Yeah, I can't really see this. I'm in the creative division. Tom, is there any way you could make this and then I'll tell you I don't like it? Yeah, I've heard that one.
Yep.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. Okay, let's do a couple of super chats before we move on to the next item on the agenda. Tom Cusa says, Greyhound was the only movie I was excited for this year, but they sold it to Apple, and I will never give them a cent.
Wow.
But stand by your convictions. I'm sure, I'm not going to get into Apple, but if that's your conviction, stand by it. And
play it on Blu-ray.
All the power to you. And Mr. Tickletrunk says, once again, hail to the great Konkle. Yeah, I think
thank you.
Agree with that.
That's very sweet. Thank you.
Yeah. And Captain Hare says that Rob sounds deeper. Is he sick? Well,
Rob, okay.
If you
define sick
right now,
how do we define sick among the four of us? It's hard to tell. What, sick in the head? Yes.
Yeah. Let's just go with that. And
I expect nothing less from him.
And Culture Casino sent us a super sticker with a nice little unicorn. Thank you so much. And Surak the Vulcan says, not an unprecedented situation. Theaters took a huge hit in the 1950s when TVs became available. Then again, theaters were the only place to watch. Well, yeah, I don't think it's quite compatible to what we have right now. I mean, in the 50s, they got competition from somewhere else. In this case, it's that audiences physically can't go, whether they want to or not. So it's not quite.
I think radio took a bigger hit when TVs came about. I think radio took a little bit of a bigger hit when TVs.
Radio.
Yeah,
radio.
And radio was a place where TV really funneled a lot of talent. They wanted to find some of the people that, radio was the breeding ground of a lot of talented people, Milton Berle, all the big stars from that period. And yeah, TV was a suck away for all the talent that was in radio. One of the reasons radio diminished is it wasn't the great place to go anymore. TV was. And that was my point about Warner Brothers. If Warner Brothers is going to get your talent to get sucked away from them because they're like, wow, I don't like how you're doing business. Someone else will benefit from that.
Yeah, and then prior to radio was vaudeville. So I mean, it goes in tiers. So we're seeing new tiers. So so for the people that are funneling the new platforms, they got to be very cautious, responsible, and a little bit ethical when it comes to what's going to happen next.
That's right. And it's like any other industry. If someone goes to medical school and becomes a surgeon, and that surgeon knows that they could make a lot of money if they create innovation or become the best in their field, you're going to attract the best and brightest into the business and advance it. If they think they're not going to make any more or less than someone who graduates at the bottom of their class and doesn't do any innovation, you'll see a contraction of creativity, a contraction of the best and brightest, because what is the incentive to excel? If you're not going to make exceptional money creating an Iron Man and doing a good job, if that's the same as creating Cats and you get paid the same, what's the incentive for excellence?
Yeah, this is a very, very good point, and something that many societies in my part of the world are absolutely a testament to. So yeah, and with that, we have a couple more super chats before we're going to slide into the next topic. Sent us a diamond super sticker, so thanks so much. And Patrick S says, some of my best movie memories are when my dad would rent classic movies. Maybe theaters are less memorable because movies are more forgettable. Yeah, I only need to look at my own DVD shelf to see how many movies are added to it. Like I have, like Place is at a premium in my DVD/Blu-ray shelf. So only the only the really, really good stuff gets to go there to be exhibited. And really, in the last 10 years, there's not a lot of things in exhibit compared to the 10 years before that, outside of like comic book movies. So,
yeah, I would agree.
To that. Yeah.
I'd also say that if theaters did reopen, you could put in Mel Brooks's Young Frankenstein, and that would be considered the #1 comedy of the last decade.
Probably.
Yeah, you're probably right. Right.
And we're almost caught up now. And Me No Other sent us almost $20. So thank you so much. That's what keeps the lights on here. And in terms of like competition on streaming, he says that is how YouTube, any artwork page works. Make your thumbnail look good at a glance, or people pass you by. Same with YouTube thumbnails. Streaming movies has to do the same thing now. Levels the playing field.
Yeah, it's what is it? You have to pick the gnat shit out of pepper. You have to. One of the reasons I had my last movie, I had the poster painted by a real artist, is that I didn't want a bunch of photoshopped heads just cut out, slapped on a background. I wanted something, and I think it's why it got pirated so much, is that it looked like it might, be something good because of the artwork.
Probably.
I think
it
catches your eye. Yeah.
I've seen many movies do that. Like the last couple of years, you've had like many independent movies that have like this really visually interesting posters.
Yes.
So they look like there's like these really high budget movies, and then you see that someone filmed this with on their mobile in their basement.
Exactly.
Because of course, then you learn to recognize those kind of posters. But I will say the one you did was really good, and so was the movie.
Oh, thank you. Mine was influenced by Amblin posters from the '80s, and I really wanted that look. But I think now the front-facing part of your product is that thumbnail, is that artwork. So much like an album, where you would see great artwork done on record albums for things. You're seeing particularly in indie films, you're seeing, well, you just can't put the face of somebody looking on there. It's going to be the size of a little postage stamp. We need something distinctive, or that artwork travels with you online. And, the reason I did for Trouble Is My Business, the reason I did that poster was to kind of make it interesting and look like it might be something people want to check out. And it's not just a picture of somebody's face.
Oh, yeah. Film and album art has totally been lost. The art is gone. And Andre will speak to that because I know
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, I spoke about my Blu-ray DVD collection, where only the absolute cream of the crop goes. Well, that cream of the crop has custom covers of the original theatrical artwork, because for each new generation of physical media, the Photoshop works that get done on the covers is worse and worse.
And superhero movies are some of the worst.
They just don't. There's no thought put into it. You're right. It's like if you want to find good art, look for the metal steel box version of something where they actually, like Criterion or something, where they actually spent some money either getting the original artwork from a classic film, or God forbid hiring a real artist to do a piece of artwork that represents both the theme, the feel, and the story in a piece of visual art. You would think that's a no-brainer, but
like
you're
a
right.
Mondo poster.
Oh, like Drew Struzan's work was fantastic.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, Drew was the reason I did the work that I did. I was like, look at Drew's work.
Well, it's definitely a lost art.
Yeah, it is, and we're poorer for it. I hope that we see a resurgence in it. Because of what's happening. Maybe the thumbnail is going to become more important, but maybe there's something beyond the thumbnail. Hopefully, there'll be digital albums that you can look at online of artwork from a film and enjoy it, or maybe there's a new way to experience a movie that's more immersive, that the art is part of it. Because as Andre was saying, it's like for those of us that love to collect, you want something to actually look at. It's not just the vehicle by which you're watching the film. You want the whole experience. You want to look at it. You want to remember liner notes when you'd listen to an album and you'd listen to, a song and then read how it was put together. And then you look at the artwork and you're like, oh, this was drawn by a friend of the bass player and this and that. That's part of why we love these movies, and we love the art that affects us, is that it's a whole experience. It's not just a disc burned with a magic marker that says what the title of the movie is. It's the whole package.
Yeah, there was that period in like 2005 to like 2018 where any type of comedy film had just a pair of women's bare legs and then a bunch of the cast underneath it. There's like 1,000 of those.
Sometimes
I remember those
nothing
floating around. It's like, what the heck is this?
Yeah, it had nothing to do with the movie, but it's everything. Like, look at my icon, my audio icon there. I just did a Victorian comedy take on, it's sort of a Monty Python take on A Christmas Carol. Well, look, I found the font. It's called The Haunting of Ebenezer Scrooge, or The Festivus Incident. Well, I did the font. I put the filigree around it, and at least it looks like the cover of a Dickens era book. And it's like, I did that so I didn't just put, Arial Bold, The Haunting of Ebenezer Scrooge. It's like, that's boring. But I did artwork for a radio show.
No, and this is something I'm sure we'll get into whenever we do get into that conversation with Robert and stuff about physical media, is like, that's kind of what changed was in the late 90s and into the aughts. Instead of actually having art departments work on this stuff, you had advertising departments come in, and that's where you had the orange blue. Every action movie is orange and blue on the cover,
or black and red, or
black and red. Yeah, but the orange and blue is the most prominent, or yellow and blue.
Yeah, you're right.
As long as the opposite sides of the spectrum.
And I do that with my YouTube videos, primarily with The Mandalorian. I come up with Western themed titles that are Star Wars like, and I throw them up there. They're not the actual titles of the episode, but I do that because it's fun, and it's also fantastic. Like, a harkens back to the genre that the show is trying to emulate.
But every single poster of the early aughts is floating heads with orange and blue melded some way.
Well, remember in the late 80s, it used to be every actor had their head in a box at the bottom of the poster, and then you had like the big logo at the top, and it had all their names underneath it.
Yep. Yeah, it was the least amount of thought put into it, and I think they're starting to catch on as you see 4K releases or box set or steel books, or Andre
some of them have gone right back to the classic art.
Yeah, and that's what we want. We want the whole experience. If you're going to drop a dime on these things, put some effort into the look of it.
Scream and Shout Factory does a lot of that now. They'll actually commission new poster artwork for Blu-ray.
Yeah, they do, and that's awesome. And so does Alamo Drafthouse, and those are like some of the best posters there are. But speaking of full experience. Let's get back into that, because it's not just the art of posters that have been lost. It's also the art of physical stunts. But one man is keeping that alive, and more than anyone else, and that would be Tom Cruise. He's like jumping from the tallest buildings in the world, and even from space or something like that. I don't know. But
That's
anyway,
60 years old.
he had kind of like a freak out on set in London, didn't he, Tom?
Yeah, in an event that would normally probably kill an actor's career, Tom actually managed to come off in a way that I think most people are like, yeah, you tell him,
Yeah.
Tom. And I think you can gain a little respect from me, because anybody who listens to me knows I'm not the biggest Tom Cruise fan in the world. But hopefully you guys can hear this. There is subtitles just in case, but here we go.
We're back here in Hollywood making movies right now because of us. Okay, believe in us and what we're doing. I'm on the phone with every studio at night, insurance companies, producers, and they're looking at us and using us to make their movies. We are creating thousands of jobs. I don't ever want to see it again. Ever. And if you don't do it, you're fired. And I see you do it again, you're gone. And anyone on this crew does it.
I suppose for a little context here, what happened was he caught people breaking COVID rules on the set, and it wasn't the first time. And I guess Tom, I think,
it's been shut down a couple times, and it's really frustrating him. Yeah.
So I just wanted to bring it, just in case anybody wasn't aware of what he's bitching about here. So yeah.
That's it. And you too, and you too, and you. Don't you ever do it again. That's it. No apologies. You can tell it to the people that are losing their homes because our industry is shut down. It's not going to put food on their table or pay for their college education. That's what I sleep with every night. The future of the industry. So I'm sorry, I'm beyond your apologies. I have told you, and now I want it. And if you don't do it, you're out. We are not shutting this movie down. Is it understood? If I see it again, you're gone. And so are you. So you're going to cost him his job. And I see it on the set, you're gone. And you're gone. That's it. Am I clear? Do you understand what I want? Do you understand the responsibility that you have? Because I will deal with your reason. And if you can't be reasonable, and I can't deal with your logic, you're fired. That's it. That is it.
Guys, he's not wrong. He's not speaking as an actor or a star. He's speaking as the producer of the film. And his point, no matter where you are in the spectrum of actor freakouts, and you think it's funny or you think he's ridiculous or spoiled, the bottom line is he's right. Their job is protecting his job. And if you agreed to be on a shoot and agreed to the COVID protocol so that you can put food on your table, and then you dismiss those and you keep getting his film shut down, they're not going to make big movies like this anymore. They're looking to this film and going, were they able to complete it? Was it a mess? Was it a train wreck? Did it never get finished? He's saying, look, we're the eyes and ears of everyone that wants to make big budget movies are watching us. We can't screw this up by being casual about it. If you agree to take the job, you have to protect Tom Cruise's job because he is the one that's driving these big paying jobs.
I agree completely. Tom, you were saying that you weren't the biggest Tom Cruise fan. As for me, I'm not a Tom Cruise fan at all. There's like I even think he's an overrated actor. There's like 2 roles of him that I really, really like.
I was being nice, and yeah,
But-
that's about it. Like 3 or 4 maybe at the most that I can think of.
But
But
in
yeah.
this thing right here, like, yeah, you can say what you want about the lockdowns and restrictions and yada yada yada, but the fact of the matter is that right now they're a requirement to get the job done. And as far as I'm aware, Mission Impossible Part 7, I think that's, exactly, which is filming right now, that is the only big budget blockbuster movie that is being filmed right now, to my awareness, like mega budget thing.
Yes.
And it's
in England.
filmed across the world. It's filmed in my own native Norway. It's filming in England. They're doing what these blockbuster movies were always doing. It's employing loads of people, both locally and in California and all of those things. It kind of like represents a hope for blockbusters, because things hopefully should be much better by the time this one is good and ready to come out. And by then it could be that it's going to be the only like proper blockbuster movie, of course, depending on how things go. The Viacom CBS could be setting themselves up for a giant fail here. We don't know that yet, but the point of the matter is that on this one, everyone has to be in 100% accordance with the rules and regulations at any given time, because there's so many productions that have been shut down. And if that happens with this one, it's going to cost everyone loads, and it's going to be a really, really bad signal effect. And I think that this production, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that this production in many ways represents a bit of hope. And it would be horrible to see that hope crashed.
Well, and why I gained a little bit more respect for him is I see the one thing we don't see out of a lot of Hollywood elites right now, and that is he knows he's in a position to be lucky to be making this movie, along with his entire crew, that, like he just said, there's a lot of jobs that he's trying to keep going.
That's right. I mean, it really is revealing when you're angry and you're not really calculating what you're saying. The guy still said, you know what? These people are losing their freaking housing. You know, they're losing their houses. The people that work for me are paying for their kids' education. He said that in anger, but unfiltered. And so he knows it's like it's not about Tom Cruise. It's the industry built around him. If you still want blockbusters with big ideas and globe spanning concepts, you can't have a train wreck of a film that you agree to be on and then you just dismiss the rules and don't protect his job. He's going to be like, well, it'll be self-proving. You'll say, see, that was a disaster. Let's not do that anymore. We shut that film down 5 times and it took, forever, or worse, it cost, so much money to make it, it can never make money back. So let's not make any more Mission Impossible type adventure films. You've just shot yourself in the foot, because the whole reason we're here on Midnight Edge is to celebrate these ambitious, large genre movies that we want to make. If the people making them aren't accepting the rules and protecting the person that's employing them, you're just not going to have them anymore.
Yeah, and that's what I mean is, like, we don't hear, a lot of athletes coming out and going, I'm thankful I get to play, basically the game that kids wish they get to play while they're sitting in school all day. I get paid to do that. And and filmmakers, I feel like, don't have that sense either. And Tom is expressing that here through his anger to me. It's like, look, we're lucky to be not only working, but just to be in the business that we're in. And if you guys can't follow a few simple fucking rules, then I'm going to get rid of you, because there's 1,000 people that are relying on me to get this job done. And if I keep this movie going, then, and as you know, Tom, once the film gets taken out of the camera, its chances of it getting put back in are next to none.
You're absolutely right. And again, they agreed to do this job. They knew what the stuff was, the protocol they have to have. It's not brain surgery. But by the same token, it's like he is the reason you're employed. At least try and protect his job. That is your job. And he is not an idiot. He knows exactly why he's doing it. He's like, I'm making this movie on a large budget to entertain a wide audience, and if you guys make it a disaster and a train wreck because you won't follow it, they just won't do it anymore. And he knows that it's not about him. He's like, everyone that works for me also has expenses. They're trying to keep their job. What are you going to do? You know, someone like me, I've been doing this my whole life. There's not a lateral into another business I'm going to do after doing this 25 years. So if they shut down doing production, I'm in deep trouble.
No, he's absolutely right. He's acting on as a responsible leader and business owner for his property. He's basically, as upset as he is personally, his entire focus is, I have to think about all these other people that work under me. And it's a reciprocal relationship. If you don't cooperate with regards to the standards that are put in place to us, whether we agree with them or not, we don't make this anymore.
Exactly. And they're on the line with the money. You know, you can't hang on to a loan for $250 million forever. They have responsibilities. He's got responsibilities. You know, like him or not like him, think that he shouldn't be filming. Regardless of all of that, what you just heard was an unfiltered outburst where he's actually thinking about the people that he works to employ, but also he's thinking about the repercussions beyond himself. It's like, look, this is a business and we're going to go down the drain if we don't shine, if we don't hold ourselves to a higher standard now when things are very stressful and bad. You're just simply not going to get Mission Impossible size movies.
And on top of that, you rarely hear a producer that articulate and forthcoming with regards to
I was going to say, it's a good thing he's an actor producer because he could actually communicate, because normally they just throw things.
Yeah. Throw things, yell,
a few producers
grab
like
the
that.
person, throw them out of the building.
Yeah, most producers would have fired both the guys, frankly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's and he was very clear that was like the next thing. So like, yeah, I'm proud of him. He brought out his Les Grossman, which is one of his two roles that I really admire. So I agree. Yeah, he did really, really good here. And if we look at some of the super chats to hear what you have to say, Tiberius Monk sent us $10. Thank you so much. And he said, I not only agree with what Crew said, I wish he went further. People are dying out here. We have people, especially politicians like Gavin Newsom, who are not taking this seriously. Way to go, Tom. And
Well
Billy
said.
Russo says for €2, Tom did nothing wrong. No, indeed, he did nothing wrong. Not on this one. On this one, I'm standing right there behind him, and I agree completely with what he's saying. And we have others like, that was Billy Russo Super Chat, and we also had Rod Thunderheart saying, I am now 1000% a fan of Tom Cruise. He just summed up everyone's feelings on anti-maskers. Mask holes, if you will. Yeah, well, your opinion on that, but in this particular context, yes.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
I'm
no,
looking.
Yeah, on a business side, not even politicizing the mask thing or talking about it because we all have different opinions on it. As a businessman, isn't it refreshing to hear in a public forum someone going, you know, I'm in this business to put food on other people's table. You stop screwing up and stop making it harder for us to keep going. People are watching us. We're responsible to create this environment that works so that with all the craziness in the pandemic, you guys can eat. You know, it's got to be sustainable right now.
And, you know, there's some people pointing out, like, you know, that he could be breaking certain protocols or violations just by filming. But look, I look at it this way. He's filming under specific rules and regulations for that reason. That's how come they got the okay to film. And that's why he's so upset, is he knows that they're that privileged to be able to do this. And that's why I kind of gravitated towards this.
They're privileged and they can be shut down.
Exactly. It's the first time I've heard somebody out of Hollywood who isn't somebody like not in, you know, the working class level going, look, we're lucky to be doing this, in so many words. And that's not just what he's saying. He's saying that plus, you know, there's other people who don't have their jobs. If this gets shut down, people could lose their houses and stuff like that. And he's not talking about
that's
himself.
the reality. It is a job.
And he's using them as an example because of the gravity of the situation. I mean, in other circumstances, if you wanted to say be professional, you maybe want to take them aside like, hey, don't do that. But this is something where those actions will risk the entire production, in which case you have to make an example of them. You have to let everybody in that production know this behavior cannot be tolerated, regardless of your personal feelings. Like, these are the rules to keep us in operations. It's not the same as, like, say you have like two main lead actors, and maybe their chemistry's a little bit too intense off camera, and it might disrupt the thing where you can take them aside privately and say, hey, listen, can you spare this and push it off until we're done shooting? It's more like, no, you that situation you can do privately, but this is way different. This is more like, okay, they screw up and say some inspector comes by and sees that, they're done.
Yeah. You're done, and thousands of people are put out of work, and that's what he's thinking about. He's like, Hollywood will look back and go, see, doesn't work. We can't do it. We're not going to do it. So the next time an opportunity comes around, they're like, not worth the trouble. Exactly. And and you can't question the level of commitment. He spent, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tom or Andre, didn't he spend like $500,000 and rent a ship in Europe for people to stay on so they could be isolated?
I think so. Yeah, like he and the few other productions that have been allowed to stay in production have done things like that to adhere to the rules. Like, you know, they're isolating their crews and their cast and all that kind of stuff. And like even what's his face who does the Medea movies? I can never remember his name.
Tyler Perry. He's built his own isolated studio and apartment.
Yeah, and he flies people out on his own plane because he just wants to keep doing it and keep people employed. And you really can't fault it. You know, it's like any other business. It's like you figure out, how do I keep working within these parameters? And if someone is disrespectful of those parameters once they're agreed upon, you have to say something. And eventually with the pressures and the tension, it's going to come out like that. And I thought it was very articulate about why he's doing it. He didn't make it about himself. He made it about observing the protocols that were agreed to, and that protecting his job is what allows people to put food on their table. And he's very aware of that.
Yeah. And I love David. David, I love you, and you don't even realize I know you're asking a serious question and an honest question. But yes, Paramount does have a streaming service. It's called CBS All Access.
But it will be changing to a new name in the new year.
Yeah, and we're not laughing at you, sir. We're laughing at the simple fact that, yeah, that's how bad CBS All Access has done. Yeah. People aren't even aware that it exists.
Yeah. Clearly they're not associated with any marketing service.
So thank you so much for that. You warmed my heart with that honest question.
I love that.
Yeah. Indeed.
That's where you know you're in trouble. Yeah. Yeah. Does Chrysler make cars?
Exactly. And and I know David's not asking out of any kind of stupidity or anything like that, so please don't think I'm making fun of you at all, sir. I loved that.
Great question.
Nope, he is proof to the pudding that CBS All Access does not properly advertise.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, there may be a problem there if that's the question. But you know what? Hey, everybody at Warner Brothers, Paramount's available if you want to go over there.
Well, and they're supposed to be restructuring it into Paramount Plus. And again, that could be a plausibility that something like Mission Impossible 7 could be a big push for something like Paramount Plus. But that's at least a year off, I think.
More. I don't think that the movie is going to be ready for release for another year. Like it's still.
That's what I'm saying. I think it's the 2022.
Yeah.
I think it'll be probably a theatrical release, but yes, it could roll out if they get a better branding on their streaming. It could be very great for them. You imagine you could have like a binge watch Mission Impossible kind of thing happen. But yeah, I don't think it'll be ready in 2021 at the rate they're having to work, because they've been shut down a number of times.
And that's what I mean. Both the service and the movie aren't gonna be ready anytime.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, Tom.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I've even heard rumors now that there's talks of, because this is one thing, not to go off too much on a tangent, but Paramount has already talked about they're not going to keep a lot of stuff exclusive. They're actually going to still farm a lot of stuff out so they can fund their stuff.
Yeah, which is smart,
In a way, yeah.
Make a stream, and I think, or many streams make a river. I was completely reversed. The idea that you can take it out to multiple places and have multiple avenues that you can do it, that's just smart. And, somebody like Paramount that doesn't have a lot of property or tent poles, it's an opportunity. The broader, they can cast their net. Possibly this is a time for them to capitalize on some of the mistakes that other places are making with some of our favorite franchises.
Well, not only that, they're trying to build new franchises, because the last 7 months they've been buying everything that they think is going to be profitable for their platform. They're the only studio that's really doing any serious buying in town, from my understanding.
Yeah, my agent called me and basically said they're starting to buy things that they don't want associated just with books or comic books. If you have anything that has a large universe building capability, send over everything you have that could possibly be that, because they're very interested in creating new work that isn't necessarily based on existing work, which I thought was a refreshing brief to get across from my agent.
To Paramount?
Yep, Paramount is making it. I don't know how they're doing it, but they are making a huge investment into original IP.
Oh, I know how.
TV and film.
They just sold fucking Simon and Schuster for $2 billion. That's how.
That money's not going there.
Well, you never know. Okay, well, regardless or whatever. The other thing I've been hearing is, and I don't know how accurate. I would know if I'd put any stock in this, but supposedly they're trying to work out a deal with Netflix to get all the Star Trek stuff moved over to there. I don't know how accurate that is.
It would be interesting if they could get it all under one thing again. That would, the idea that CBS and Paramount have been fighting about Star Trek for 20 years has not been to the benefit of Star Trek.
I don't know if Andre has anything to say to that. I don't know how accurate.
I will say that that's what completely destroyed Star Trek. That is what led to the downfall of the franchise. All the mystery that's been going on is because of that rights division that we of course have covered ad nauseum in other videos, so I'm not going to go through it here.
You did a terrific breakdown of that, by the way. I thought you guys did a great job. I watched that, must have been more than a year ago, and I thought it was one of the best distillations of how things end up where they are. The balance between the creativity versus the executive maneuvering and the feuding and battling. You caught that really well. If someone hasn't seen it here on the channel, I encourage you to look for the breakdowns that you did on what happened with CBS and Paramount. I thought it was excellent.
It's called The Prime Deception is the one you're referring to. It's like almost an hour long. I remember it because it nearly killed all of us to make it.
But you did a terrific job. It was one of the best insider kind of industry things that I'd seen. I thought it was terrific. It was something that really surprised me, how well you distilled what happened. I thought you guys did a great job.
I love how you use the word distilled when talking about an hour-long documentary too.
And it was distilled. I assure you, that was the most.
Oh yes, I know.
I ever wrote.
Oh yes, I was there through the whole thing. I know.
You remember it well.
I went through that battle. Yes.
Yeah. Well, remember it. We still wake up screaming and sweating.
Shit.
Yeah. How do you think Ken Burns feels about the Civil War? He's still screaming about it.
Baseball.
Yeah, baseball. Tecumseh Sherman.
So yeah. But anyway, yes, for those that haven't seen it, just search for the channel Midnight's Edge Prime Deception. It's like a 50-minute long video, and reserve the time and have some nice to drink, have some Valium or something, because you might need it by the end of it, because it's information dense.
Well, the only reason I wonder if there isn't any truth to the whole Netflix rumor, and I don't know if it means they're going to sell Star Trek all out to Netflix. I think it's just more so they're going to push the shows to Netflix is what the rumor is insinuating. Mm-hmm. And I think that's true just because they ain't got an audience on CBS All Access. And it might have something to do with the deal with Netflix, maybe to keep it going, because we don't know how many years that was set for.
You know what the big deal with that is?
What's that?
That's a complete breakdown in the relationship with Amazon.
I figured that I was going to get to that point, but like I was just going to say is I think what's going on here, and I think this is tied to why season 4 of Discovery hasn't started shooting yet, is they haven't got a deal set, and they know Paramount Plus is not going to be ready, and CBS All Access is a non-starter. Like the fucker's dead. Let's face it. Like they know it. They've already admitted defeat. It's coming out in most of the trades now that it's basically a dud. Like, I mean, let's face it, until they get Paramount Plus built, which is a while. And even then, we still have not seen one little bit of indication that Star Trek is going to have a major platform there.
I would like to point out that Star Trek Lower Decks still has no international distribution.
Wow. And yet, do you know the guy who created it just got a multi-project deal to continue. I don't know if you guys saw that, but the showrunner on that just picked up a exclusive deal and more money to develop more stuff, and yet his product isn't even out internationally.
They probably got him cheap.
Yeah,
cheap, and he probably has a very good manager or agent.
He has a great manager or agent. He has a,
well, not only that, I'm sure they're going to ramp up a lot of animated stuff right now because animation is the only thing they can get going.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now is a good time to be an established, not necessarily an established animator, but an established animating showrunner. Someone that deals with like the managing side of the animation. That would be a very good thing right now.
You're absolutely right. I would say the vast majority of, the auditions that I get as an actor are all voice auditions for animated series. I had 13 auditions yesterday for animated series.
Nice.
Yeah,
I think a big
they're
portion.
all that.
I think like that's another reason why a big portion of Disney's announced slate was all animated. I don't know. It's so easy to get an animated show going right now with this situation. I mean, I could technically get one started. I do the Batman animations for Pete's sake, but those are cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've been talking with people for my animated cartoon show too, but I just don't have as much access as I'd like to to get that completely committed yet.
I tell you, I wish I was still doing Be Cool Scooby-Doo. If we hadn't been, let go by Warner's, and then they put us behind a paywall on Boomerang and killed the show. As an animated series, we were starting to really kind of deconstruct the whole Scooby thing and do kind of a Monty Python take on it. And they just screwed it up. They had us write a season and then didn't release it for a year and killed it. But if we had something ongoing animation right now, everyone can work from home. It would be a lot of fun, and it would be a good creative outlet. So anybody that's doing an animated thing right now, that's the place to be.
Hey, season 3 of the original Scooby-Doo didn't happen for almost like 10 years after the original.
I know. Well, I still get people asking me, they're like, Tom, is there going to be more Be Cool Scooby-Doo? Because it's doing well. I'm like, I have no idea. It's been, we haven't made any in, more than 3 years.
Yeah. Well, Scooby-Doo, it's back again, but you had experience right there. That's exactly what we've kind of talked about, though. They used your show to try and push that streaming service.
Yep. They used it to try and get people to go on Boomerang, and people didn't follow it because they didn't want to pay for Boomerang.
Yeah, there you go. And I mean, I've never got a chance to watch the show, but I do know some people who are huge Scooby-Doo fans, and I know it was fairly well received within the community. So
yeah, we had some good ones. I mean, Mark Hamill was in the first one I ever did. I did one called Area 51 Adjacent, and it was about Area 53, which was 2 more secret than Area 51. And a bunch of people loved it, watched it. We really pushed the envelope and had a lot of fun doing it. And I think if we had been able to find our stride on it, we would have had a really funny, like adults would watch it on one level and realize how much we were making fun of, and you meddling kids, and then kids would enjoy it because it still had that, adventure and mystery and all that. But, we used to get the weirdest briefs. They'd be like, hey, on YouTube videos are 10 minutes. Is there any way you could just do the whole mystery in 10 minutes? And I'm like, what, create the entire mystery and solve it in 10 minutes? Yeah. And that's the kind of thought that was going into it.
I'm sure you're trying hard enough just to cram it in 20.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, it's hard enough to do that,
You got to cut out all the fun twists that a mystery has.
Yeah. It's just like, someone went home and saw their kid on YouTube, and they're like, how long is that video? All right, call Konkle up. Tell him, can you do it in 10 minutes?
No, and Alpha J says they've already kind of started a new show. Like, that's the thing, and that kind of happened with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I was scratching my head going, you have a popular show already going.
Yeah.
And you scrap that for this other obnoxious show that basically has been a no-go for them, even though they're trying to pretend it's big enough, but they have no toys.
Yeah.
I mean...
I completely forgot about that show.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's studio logic sometimes. It doesn't make any sense in the real world.
Yeah, it's only logic within the confines of the head of the executive in question.
Well, it's just this. I don't get this mentality of trying to speed something up into whole, like, oh, we got to reboot it already. It's like, but we're working on it. Wait, you know, so
we're by the way, we're rebooting it, but I'm writing it right now.
You were.
Oh, I've heard that.
Writing it. Yeah, exactly.
I've heard that many times. Like, but we're writing it. You were writing it. Well,
you were writing it, Tom. This is your replacement. Can you tell him what it is you do?
Yeah. Well, then what's the point? Why don't I just
be
do
your
it?
boss? Can you train him?
Yeah, right. And like Mr. Tickle Trug says here, studio logic is an oxymoron, Tom.
I love Mr. Tickle Trug. You're absolutely right.
It's studio patterns, actually. That would be the better thing. Studio patterns.
Yeah, it's like
patterns of behavior. We see them all the time. It's like, we haven't heard anything from upstairs in the last 4 days. I think we're canceled.
Wait, my login doesn't work on my computer. I think I've been let go.
Yeah, that's the thing is either when you don't hear anything, either you're doing a good job or you've been let go. Is that the problem? It's like, yeah.
Either or.
So true.
One of my agents who I had to get rid of just because he didn't like to communicate with me was pretty much like that. I'd find out, I don't have a job ananymore, and I'd call him up and be like, hey, did I get fired or anything? And then he's like, I'll call you back in 30 minutes.
Oh, shit.
Like, well, what are you doing? Listen, I've made some bad calls when it comes to who I sign with agencies. I'm perfectly happy with that.
When you ask a question like that and you get told you're going to have to wait for a call back in 30 minutes, I think you just got your fucking answer pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. That's pretty much what I did. Is like, okay, yeah, I just assumed it.
If Andre
Yeah,
said something like that, if I ask Andre, I'm like, am I fired? And he's like, I'll get back to you in 30 minutes. Like, I think I know the answer.
Yeah, I think that's the answer to that question.
Yeah, that's look,
it's like, don't fucking bother. I already know.
Yeah. You don't need to call me back.
Pretty much, like at some point, like the failure to issue a strict denial is pretty decent confirmation. But yeah, gentlemen, we have a couple of more super chats before we get through the very last topic of the day. Yes. Cedric Taylor 08 says, Are they going to redo Mortal Kombat, and why all the redo? Can't they come up with new stuff on their own? I can answer this one. They already redid Mortal Kombat. It's coming out in April now, so that's already done. It's filmed. It's all good.
And this is not the first time they've rebooted Mortal Kombat either. So it's had a few different,
Well, it is in non-fanfic form, so but
that one is not fanfic. The one that Machinima did.
Yeah, there's also a TV series that they did in the late '90s, the Xena, the Warrior Princess style, I think. And
yeah, exactly.
That was a spin-off of the movies, but yeah,
kind of at least.
But this is the first actual theatrical. Was meant to be a theatrical movie, yes, and it kind of came in under the radar in a way because I don't even remember hearing about it, but I do remember there was a lot of movement on Mortal Kombat for a long time. But
yeah, it's been in development hell for a decade. But anyway, now it's done. It's filmed and it's coming out in April. Why can't they come up with new stuff on their own? Why all the redos? Well, that's actually a little bit our fault as the movie-going audience, and it's the entertainment journalist's fault, because that's the kind of stuff that they give coverage to. That's the kind of stuff that we as audiences are interested in. Like, for instance, it's very easy to ignore the current situation. Let's get back to like 1 year in the past. Every single weekend, there would be new original movies opening. Every single weekend. And no one would go watch them. Instead, they would highlight, there's another sequel or remake. Why can't they give us original movies instead? Well, completely ignoring the original movies that came out every single week. That's why. Money.
Yeah, you're right.
That's very much our fault as audiences.
It's also a lot harder to sell something new than it is to, and reintroduce an established brand. Like, that's the one thing that Paramount right now is taking a big risk on when they're buying all these other projects is if they don't screw up, they could end up becoming a powerhouse in the next 10 years again. But it all comes down to if they don't screw up, which, I mean, you can pretty much set your watch to when they do screw up at this point. But it's basically the other mentality within Hollywood is that it's a lot safer to keep your job by saying no than yes. So unless you get that creative with that new original idea or that new concept that just makes dollar signs appear in your eyes, you're probably not going to get too far. It's still going to be a big uphill battle. But if you say, oh, I got the rights to this old property, I've got this new idea for a movie or show, and they're just like, well, that's an easy marketing strategy. Our marketing department can do something with that. They can, you can do stunt casting for people who used to be who are still alive of the old property. You get some more talk into it. You get all the journalists and trade papers reporting on, hey, a revival of this. It ends up making it a lot easier to get that money and get into production because you've already got this established interest that is technically free. Like everyone who paid for it back then doesn't have to pay for it anymore.
Exactly. He also has one follow-up question. When will we see Top Gun 2? And is there another Mission Impossible where they pass the torch? Well, you'll see Top Gun 2. Who the hell knows? It's in the can. We're just waiting for, I don't know, Paramount Plus or for theaters to reopen, one of the two. And yeah, there is another Mission Impossible filming right now. That is the one where Tom Cruise had the freakout. If that is a passing of the torch movie, I very much doubt. It's probably going to be another 2-3 movies down the line. If things.
Yeah, they were going to do 7 and 8 simultaneously. I don't know if they've scaled it back to just doing 7 because Christopher McQuarrie had wanted to shoot both while Tom was still, young enough to do all the stunts that he needed to do. But yeah, I Top Gun is in limbo. I wasn't it originally going to be something like June.
Yeah, it was supposed to come this summer.
Yeah. So that's a huge question mark. And again, they're sitting on a $150 million movie sequel to, beloved film, but no one has any idea how it's going to roll out.
My guess is it'll probably get sold to like Amazon or Netflix.
Yeah, it probably will.
Yeah.
I think that movie could have made a lot of money in theater.
Viacom, CBS, they can't sit on it forever. Moving on, also sent us consecutive super chats. First one saying, "Hi gents, hoping Cruise won't lose positions. Well, then the Cruise better act up, or better not act up and do as they're supposed to do, and then they'll be fine." Yeah. And then he says, "Still craving those special features." Well, aren't we all? And Al Adolfson sent us a $1.99 donation super chat with no comment, but we thank you for the support. And said one more time, there's so much on the line to keep the exemption. There is indeed. And Tiberius Monk sent us $10. Thank you so much. Stuff like that really keeps the light on. And yeah, he said the comment we also that he not only agrees with Cruise, he wished he had gone further. We covered that already. So, but yeah, agreed completely. And Raging Golden Eagle says, "If I had original IP, the last thing I do is give it up to a big corporation."
Well,
that just depends on how you negotiate, right?
Yeah. I mean, all these ideas, or these what we're calling old ideas or rebooted ideas, were original ideas at some point. And with everything, it's balance. You have to have a certain amount where you're revisiting very familiar territory, but if the ratio of visiting familiar territory is way higher than the original IP you're creating, you create a problem, which is it becomes self-reflexive. The ideas collapse. It becomes less and less big a tent of ideas. You have to have new IP to even reboot that IP, and you have to find a balance. And it's not always selling out. Sometimes it's buying in, and that was a hard lesson for me to learn when I first moved to Hollywood. Is I felt as you did. It's like, oh, I have original IP. I'm not going to give it to anybody or any corporation. But you want eyeballs. You want people to see your IP. You have to learn the art of compromise. You have to get as much of your idea through as possible. But you can have it be perfect and hang it in your closet and nobody will see it. If you want complete control, be a novelist.
Yep. And not only that, like if you spend years working your way up through the industry and you end up holding on to that one IP that you just cherish, you might find yourself in a position where you get someone to produce it, but you still retain the rights to the IP. And correct. I mean, that's the dream, but that's a 1 in a million type of shot.
Sometimes it's a trade-off.
Yeah. It becomes perseverance and hard work. I even think Seth MacFarlane's not even 100% there with the Orville. Like I know he owns a lot of it, but I don't know if he owns all of it.
Yeah. And Seth is a guy who has the courage of his convictions. He wanted to do the shows he did, the animated shows. They rejected him as an actor when he was starting, producer, and he just kept plugging away until he built his own little empire.
Yeah,
and that's what you have to do.
And kind of bouncing off of this and the other super chat we had before, like, I mean, it used to be that the movie was sold on the star or the director, what have you, and sequels and all that kind of stuff used to be kind of like they felt, they were the dirty little thing that Hollywood did. They weren't always so happy about doing them, but they always knew that they would generally make 30 to 50% what the first movie did. Like very rarely did you have a sequel that went above and beyond the original. So it wasn't a big deal for them to like continually make a sequel or a franchise out of something. They were always trying to find the next cool big thing, especially throughout the 80s. And then the 90s, it started becoming more and more about the franchises. And comic book movies are a big part of that. Like between things like X-Men and Spider-Man and stuff that really kind of spawned this idea of we need to get in on this. We need to get the next big franchise. And, then things like Avengers blew up, and then that really changed everything forever. And then that's where, Bob Iger, that's where his mentality came in with, to go forward, Disney's got to get things like Lucasfilm and, solidify a deal with Pixar and, because of the franchise aspect of it. And again, it'll hopefully change one of these days, but things like John Wick, they started as an original IP idea that wasn't a franchise in quotations, but yet spawned one. Just like
a new genre,
exactly, So you never know what
guy's credit. The screenwriter wrote an original piece. He got it in the hands of the right people. They executed well on the story, and it became this unexpected thing. I love that we still have an environment where happy accidents like that can happen. That's something if, obviously the people that made that first film really cared about it. They wanted to make the kind of action film they wanted to enjoy. And fortunately, they were rewarded by having it be a success. And somebody like Keanu Reeves brings eyeballs to your project. And his level of commitment to that is Tom Cruise level commitment.
Well, and the weird thing about John Wick is everything was kind of working against it.
Yeah.
And what I mean by it came out in an era where the franchise is king. Keanu Reeves hadn't been coming off some of his biggest films in a while. Like he had actually been coming off some of his biggest flops in a while.
That's right.
And again, like I said, it wasn't a big franchise. It wasn't, and Lionsgate wasn't a studio that had the kind of financing to put behind an original idea and really get it out there. And it just happened to permeate in society. And people are like, have you seen this? And it's like, just slowly became one of those pop boilers or,
phenomenon.
Yeah.
It's a brilliantly tried and true kind of testament because you can look back on trailers for action movies over the last 20 years, and the basic concept of the trailer is it's a guy with a gun. It's a guy with a gun, right? And that's what John Wick ended up being. It's like it took the concept of that trailer of a guy with a gun just shooting up some people, being the hero, and they said, let's make that, like, commit to that concept and make it into a full film, and let's give it some heart. And let's just do that one thing, which is make him be at a loss for the woman he loved and what she gave him as a gift that represents that love. And there's your driving force. Yes. You get the basic element to understand the execution of guy with a gun. And all I heard after John Wick came out was people want more guy with gun stories. People now want women with gun stories. And it's like, listen, I'm happy to try and do that, but that's their thing right now. We got to find your own angle with it. You can't keep, towing the line of that style.
Yeah.
Like it hits. It's like, yeah, you're looking at it superficially. This is a story that's like very personal in nature, that's shrouded around the trailer marketing concept of guy with a gun. So, right. You can't just ask me to look at that. You're more than welcome to ask me to look at that and give you a copy of it, which I'm happy to do if you sign the check. But you're not going to get the return you want by copying it. And we've seen a lot of attempts at that. I think even like Atomic Blonde was trying to do that as well. It changed direction. Yeah.
Well, if you look at any behind the scenes that, Chad and David were the two directors on it, and they were making a movie they wanted to see. This is a perfect thing. Andre was saying earlier, we have to reward original films, or when someone really tries, you have to show up in the theater and reward that with money, because that's what encourages them to do more. Well, this happened to be a case where it was a very accessible genre. It was made by two stuntmen and directors who love cinema and made the movie they wanted to see, with an actor who totally committed to learning the moves and learning about his character's physicality. And in this case, it paid off. I wish we had an environment where that could happen more, because you can tell it was going to be a winner just by talking to them, because it was a movie they wanted to see. It wasn't a widget. It wasn't a white paper somewhere that someone said, oh yeah, if we do X, Y, and Z, it'll equal this. It was like, no, we just want to make this incredible film. We're stunt guys. We want to make the movie that we always wish we could have made. And they fortunately got rewarded for it. And we need to have that more often.
Indeed we do. And then we had a super chat from Miguel Hernandez, who says, I don't get why Bezos didn't buy Viacom before they sold Simon & Schuster. Amazon could have maximized their entire catalog as well as the merchandising. What are your thoughts?
I think that's interesting. I think you're right. It's one of these things where he and Apple have enough cash that they wouldn't even need to borrow, to make an acquisition. It does make a lot of sense. The more you can put everything sort of under your own tent, the more access to property, stories, etc. that you have. Certainly, the books and the catalog could have fed Amazon stories, which could then feed the studio. So yeah, I don't know. There's probably some very fundamental reasons why it wasn't on the table for him to do it. But yeah, I'm very surprised. I'm still looking for someone to snatch up Netflix. They are so leveraged. If Apple really wanted to become a player, they could pay cash.
They could, totally. They totally could. I'm just going to see if we are caught up then. We are not quite caught up. Mr. Tickletrunk says, if you treat studios more like a force of nature, their actions give you less headaches.
Well said. It's a hurricane, or at least a low pressure front.
Indeed. And Raging Golden Eagle says, maybe selling out doesn't matter as much anymore. If you keep your IP to yourself, some big corporation will make something coincidentally similar. Now, that's a risk with that.
That's just the nature of the game. You would not believe how many people think they have an original idea in the town, and it's not. It's just
it's zeitgeist. I remember having an idea and literally looking up 3 months later while I was writing it, and the exact idea came out. I even did a series one time, and we had the guy who we were nominated for something, and the guy who was presenting the nomination to us, we didn't win, but the guy who presented us the award the next year came out with exactly the same show that he had been developing parallel, and it gets better. I walked by my office in Burbank, and 2 doors down from me was that show had been being developed in the same year, right next to my office. It was just in the zeitgeist.
Like the sample script I wrote to get my Paramount internship was a Star Trek spec script, but it had the same format as Heroes. But this is before Heroes was even in production. And the reason that they liked it is we'd never seen a narrative format like this before, and that's kind of what started me on. And then right after my internship abruptly ended, Heroes premieres. I'm like, oh my God, that's the exact same thing. And those guys are writing that same type of format 2 years prior to when I even wrote my thing. So it's sometimes there's something in the ether that we pick up on, and we just have a similar concept that we have, different execution maybe, or a lot of different details, but the broader picture is very similar. And unfortunately, that's unavoidable.
I think you're right. I think, we talk about the collective unconscious. I think in a way, artists don't create in a vacuum. And I think because we live in the world, I think there are trends that subconsciously influence what we're doing. And when you and I sit down and write something, or maybe one day you and I will write something together, our own influences and where we are in that moment in time, it's, they always say garbage in, garbage out, or good stuff in, good stuff out. That you will pick up on that zeitgeist, on the collective unconscious, and we might come up with an idea either together or separately that is very much of its time, but it's innovative. But many artists are influenced by that. That's why we used to see entire movements, in painting or movies or whatever. It's because of the time you're living in. All that stimulus, all the thought, the new way of seeing the world is affecting the artist the same way it's affecting the audience. And your new idea is really just based on a lot of things that are happening that influence, 100 different artists.
Yeah. I've had that happen, and I've had other ideas. I'm surprised it haven't been stolen yet. I've sent messages on script. I'm like, here, get this going so nobody steals it.
The other part too is that like in my experience, it's only the sleaziest of sleaziest on the fringe side of Hollywood that really does the stealing part. Most people would just prefer to buy.
I also just feel like so somebody doesn't do it first.
I always say it's more expensive to steal from me than to just buy it.
It is, yeah, because that's the truth. A lot of people know that.
Oh, I know.
Indeed. And moving on, we have Conquest Comics that says Xenotype and Blade Devil are pro-level manga available now on IGG. Check them out and help support small creators that put the fans first. Well, everyone, you heard a recommendation, so if you're into manga, go check that out. And with that, I believe we are entirely up to date with Super Chats. But Tom, we had a final story to cover today.
Well, it looks like Revenge of the Nerds might be getting a reboot. Might. I use that term loosely because this is what, the fourth time I think you said?
Yeah, fourth time's a charm, I guess.
There's so many unanswered questions from the last. We have to revisit that, right?
Like, what are nerds today? Like, in comparison to these ones, like they're unrecognizable.
That's kind of the problem I think you have here. Fundamentally, is when Revenge of the Nerds came out, nerds had a completely different status in society.
Yes,
and they even addressed that in Nerds 3, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
Like, because
nerd culture is culture now. I mean, there's no distinction. It's people that are nerdy or geeky are not outliers. They are influencers. They're the cool kids at the table now. So the idea, I mean, if you'd have to do a movie about people that are just getting bullied, and I don't know how funny that would be, or you know, if you do kind of the sex romp comedy from the 80s, it would just be it would arrive like a lead balloon at this point. I'm just not sure, unless was it Seth who wanted to reboot it?
I guess Seth MacFarlane is reviving it with the Lucas brothers.
Okay. Maybe he has a hot take on it that none of us are seeing, but yeah, I just don't see the same distinction, because maybe he's going to flip it. Maybe the jocks are the outliers and the nerds are.
It's funny you said that,
and the jocks are geeks.
I don't know if Script was on that show, but I remember one of the last times this was being talked about, that was one thing I pointed out, was like you would almost have to swap it now to where like it's the the manly jockey guys are the ones who are the outcasts, and it's the nerds and all that stuff. Yeah,
or like the jocks realize that they can't fight with words, they'll fight with fists.
Which kind of
exactly
the whole purpose of the idea. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, there was a script that was, I think it was on the blacklist in 2017. And it was called Social Justice. And it was basically like a Revenge of the Nerds type of thing, where it involved bullying, but it would involve this one woman a student who called out their teacher for being inappropriate on behalf of another student. And it ended up turning into this battle between the faculty and her over what is it to be politically correct and invoke social justice. And it's a pretty funny script. It just, sadly, the reason I don't think it took off too well is it didn't commit to any particular point of view. It just kind of threw it all out there, and its ending kind of fell flat. But
it would have been interesting to do an anti-social justice one. It would be very interesting to like, if you had the money and resources to actually go through and make them the villains in a comedy. Would be
make both parties the villains. That's the way.
Or like Raging Golden Eagle says here. I think he has probably the best take, at least in my opinion, because this is the thing: is if you can get Seth MacFarlane, who is somebody who's not necessarily in the woke crowd. I mean, he does kind of...
He's not politically correct.
But he doesn't seem to be politically correct. And yeah, if he's somebody who can take this idea and run with it, like Raging says here, and current year nerds are the original fans who are getting bullied out of their own communities by the diversity and inclusion crowd. Now, if you go with that angle...
that would be...
There's a freaking angle. That basically...
I would do that movie.
That movie.
Could you imagine that? Taking the original cast of like the Avengers of the Nerds, like their diversity already, which already exists, and then having someone call them not diverse, and they're just looking at each other like, "What are you, an idiot?"
It could be hilarious, especially if it's really sharp and very smart and deconstructs the whole thing. It could be. I mean, that would be a very sharp comedy. Yeah.
And if there's one person that can do that, it's Seth MacFarlane.
So
Agreed.
yeah, there is a plausibility this could come out correctly, but yeah, I would hope Raging Golden Eagle that they go with that angle, because otherwise there's no way you can do this movie. It just doesn't work. Because in all other social settings and places now, like I said, they've already addressed how nerds are basically, it's the cool culture now.
Yeah,
and that's what it's got to be about,
nerds.
is basically the nerds going like, wait a minute, they're stealing our culture, like, you know, like
appropriating our culture.
Exactly, yeah. And I don't think that, and that's, you know, honestly, it would get shit on and attacked left and right, but Seth would have the biggest balls in Hollywood if he did that.
Yeah, I think that would be a home run if he could do that. I mean, he has enough resources where if he really wanted to make that film, he could. And I think there'd be an audience for it, but also I think that would be a truly diverse point of view, ironically.
And I got to play Booger. And the whole point that I'm a 40-year-old college kid is exactly why I got to play Booger.
I would cast you in second. I love that. Aren't the Lucas brothers working with like Phil Lord and Christopher Miller? I mean, those guys are pretty anarchic.
Oh, they were in 22 Jump Street.
Yeah,
I was just going to say earlier, that's where most people might recognize them from. And I think didn't they have a Comedy Central show or something like that?
They were on Key and Peele or something.
Something like that. I thought they had their own show as well, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, can you imagine like Phil Lord, Christopher Miller, Seth MacFarlane team up on a thing that makes social justice warriors the villains? I mean, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Will they though? That's the big question.
I don't know, but if anybody could do it, it's Seth. He doesn't need somebody else's money.
But like Conquest Comics says here with a generous Australian $5 super chat, thank you so much. The last 3 episodes of Family Guy have been Seth taking a passive aggressive jabs at social justice. So maybe I think MacFarlane is over it. That sounds both promising and a little bit deflating at the same time, but I guess time will tell on this one. And again, I know like Nerds is one of those franchises that is really kind of like one movie. Like, let's be real here. The first movie is the only movie anybody really gives a shit about.
Yeah.
I like the second and third one. All right. Yeah. I mean,
3 were weird.
The fourth one is a complete dud. And the third and fourth one were TV movies, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, they brought Ogre back as a computer scientist.
Well, that was picking up after 2 because he became part of the gang.
Yeah. But he does have the best line in 2. What if DOG spelled cat?
Oh, part 2 I feel like is overlooked a little bit. But anyway, regardless, like they did have some pretty good continuity at least between the films. I will give them that much. But again, I don't know what their idea is. I want to hear more about what the plan is. Is it going to be like a reboot from the ground up? Are you going to try and recapture these characters but within a modern setting? You know, again, are they going to try and go with something like Raging Golden Eagle said? That's where I think a lot of people will be interested, because even if you go with the idea of doing like a TNA comedy nowadays, you can't even do that.
No,
like,
unfortunately.
I heard about Porky's was supposed to be getting redone too, and I'm just like, how the fuck can you do Porky's now?
No, I mean, in this climate, you can't. I mean, you'd have a hard time doing a Mel Brooks style comedy now. I don't see them being able to do it, which is unfortunate for comedy. You know, that's why there's not a lot of comedy theatrically.
Roger Haynes wants me to practice by saying, "We've got Bush." How does like pan down?
Comedy's been the hardest thing to sell. In fact, even some of the ones that I've seen floating about are not really comedies. They're just dramas with some jokes in them. It's like that's about it. But they're being pitched as comedies, and it's like these are really tame from what I remember growing up watching in the comedy world.
Come on. Yeah. Come on, Booger's like, I say we blow the fucker's house up. Like, you're going to get that nowadays, you know?
Yeah, that's true. You couldn't even say that. There's so many times I watch comedies on Blu-ray now where I'm like, that scene wouldn't happen. Oh, you couldn't do that again. Well, no, we can't say that.
And Lamar, for fuck's sake. I mean, yeah, he's a diverse character, but let's face it, he's a huge gay stereotype. You wouldn't get away with that now.
Yep.
I mean, same thing with Tekashi and, you know, all that kind of stuff. Or, you know, what the fuck is the frush? They would be able to do that joke now. You know?
Yeah. And Poindexter would be recast because you can't have gingers in film.
Yeah, he'd be recast. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, you can't have red hair. You can't.
Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah. What have we done?
He was probably the purest of all the nerds, really.
Yeah.
was pretty diverse. But didn't they had Bernie Casey and they had Anthony Edwards in it. I mean, it was a pretty I mean,
it was a great cast.
We've gone backwards from Blazing Saddles. We've
Omega Moves too. People overlook that too. I mean, look at all the ladies that were in the Omega Moves. They weren't your standard,
No, I know. Yeah, they weren't your typical. Comedies were a great place where you could cast offbeat people.
And the Bellspelt that they got the chapter with Lambda, 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 and it's not a traditional. Oh gosh,
that's right.
We got in. Well, we sent out pictures to everybody except for one. Who? Lambda, Lambda, Lambda.
Yeah, I miss comedies. I really do.
Oh, I love Revenge of the Nerds. So anyway, Gladiator sends in $5. Conquest Comics is a false flagger who worked to take down a Comicsgate creator named Nassar. He is an SJW in disguise. Don't promote cancel culture. Okay. Wow, I did not know that. And without any proof, I can't really do anything about that, but appreciate the heads up.
Well, in that case, then we appreciate the heads up, and we thank them for their donation.
All right. Tiberius Monk sends in another $2 super chat. In this era, you couldn't do Married with Children? Oh, hell no.
Yeah, that's sad. I mean, you couldn't do All in the Family.
No, that was brilliant.
Which is sad because you know what? A Married with Children reunion show now would be fucking amazing.
Yeah, it would do really well. It really would.
And most of the cast isn't really doing anything that important that you could.
No, Ed O'Neill just finished his Modern Family.
Oh, fingers crossed. I would.
And I think Katie Seagal is still doing the Connors, but
just call it Married with Grandchildren.
Oh God.
They get stuck with the kids as kids. That's all it is, And Bud is just
good. It would be interesting if you had a good, edgy kind of script. You could actually do something with that. Yeah.
Kids are still living at home, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. They're all there. Yeah.
Peg, why is it I got to raise my
but
kids?
It's Kelly that does.
Isn't that the rules? Once they turn 18, I get to kick them out of the house. I don't have to raise their kids too.
Yeah. And he still works at the shoe store.
And you're a grandmother now. Aren't you supposed to be making like cookies and pies and stuff?
It could work. If somebody's listening, do it. Make it happen.
Absolutely. I would love a revival like that. That would be amazing. Yeah, and exactly. Like kids today, they can't afford a house like the Bundys have. Like who the hell can afford to have
who could have that
house that was supposed to be like such a shitty thing? That's a mansion, their house. At least from my standards here in Norway. I'm like, who the hell can afford a house like that now? People getting established. People are under the age of 50. Who can afford a house like the Bundys had in the 80s? So
because the Bundys couldn't even afford that house.
Yeah, let's be real. They really couldn't in reality. Yeah. And I think that's kind of the whole joke of it. But Gladiator,
the joke they made is like, we're going to lose the house this week.
Gladiator says Conquest Comics is one name at Comics. All right, that's fine. We're not going to get in the middle of drama. We appreciate the heads up.
We have never heard of them. So,
I don't know who that is.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then Raging comes in again. Thank you so much. The man of the hour, it appears to be. Also the man who was suggested to be our anime go-to guy. So many things we can't do these days, but once someone does it and it takes off, the mainstream will about face and try to jump on the bandwagon. You're not wrong. I don't think you're wrong in any way, but going back to what we've said many, many times on this program and other places, this is a manufactured trend. This isn't like a normal trend that just takes over,
No, exactly. That's a scary thing here. It didn't come on its own. It was planted, and it can be artificially maintained. That's the insidious thing here.
I agree.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, as long as there's one studio that's willing to back this type of return to risk of offense in order to entertain, that will be a game changer. But again, you have to find enough people to back it, and it has to be of a quality that actually earns that backing in order for it to sort of change direction of this current climate.
Yeah. The only thing I'm finding that I really like is What We Do in the Shadows. I think is isn't it filmed up in Canada? I think it is filmed up.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's some sharp writing. It's very subversive.
But again, it's an outlier as far as a show goes, and it's not really getting the light shined on it as much as it should. But it's got a terrific cast, a British cast, and it's an amazing show.
Gladiator says EBS can confirm about Conquest Comics. All right, well, I'll ask him about it, and we'll see how it goes. But we don't get in the middle of drama stuff, so there you go. But yeah, I guess my married with grandchildren idea is popular. They're
owned some legs. Yeah.
They're owned by Viacom, so I'm sure somebody from CBS is listening. There you go. There's a free idea.
They always are. You know what? We can put that suggestion in the next Star Trek video. Then that'll definitely.
Why can't you do good shows? Like,
yeah.
Oh no! Shit, we shouldn't, because then Alex Kurtzman might be the one getting his hands on it.
Yeah, that'll.
Can you imagine Alex Kurtzman's married with grandchildren? Forget it. Yeah,
there'd be a lot of crying. And well, I mean, we already saw the promo for Clorice, and that thing tanked already.
Yeah, that did not do well. I'm not sure what they were thinking.
What, has it tanked already? Tell me more.
Well, there's no response to it on social media. It just kind of flipped and then vanished.
Of course. Like, I was thinking, have they shown it already? Like, it came without us mocking it.
No, just the trailer, and they showed nothing in the trailer.
It came
there's nothing. There's no buzz at all around it. It just really is super, super quiet.
It came.
Why the hell would there be about? Who would care about?
I think one of their taglines was "Break the silence," and they said, and the world said no.
Yeah,
and the world replied no. Yeah.
No, the world replied, "Stay indoors."
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's basically they're going to take the Criminal Minds template formula and just apply it to, the Silence of the Lambs character, and the two probably don't have much to do with each other.
Well, they tried taking the Criminal Minds formula. They don't understand it, because I've read the script. It's one of the worst things I've read in a long time.
Is it a mess? Yeah.
Oh, yes, it is.
If you don't have a good script to start, you that's the foundation. It's doomed.
Yeah. So good times. We look forward to tearing down that one. Yeah, I've read the script too. It's god awful. That is what we couldn't get Silence in the Lambs in the excellent Hannibal series for. So yeah,
we did a video on that.
Yeah.
See, that again is probably an art of the deal thing, because I just looked it up, and Jenny Lament wrote the script. She's the daughter of director Sidney Lament.
Yep.
And granddaughter of Lena Horne.
So a generation.
Yeah, it's Hollywood royalty writing with royalty in a bubble, and they're like, "Hey, give Jenny something," and she's like, "Oh, I haven't done that before. Let me do that." And
well, she's also one of the writers on Star Trek Discovery too. And yeah, I guess she has a great friendship with Alex Kurtzman, because they've been working together for a number of years.
Yep.
But
so
she is. Yeah, but she's nowhere, like, maybe her talents lie something else in the industry, but it's not writing, sadly. I mean,
yeah, I think being Sidney Lament's daughter is all the entree she needed.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's how this business works a lot.
And Raging Golden Eagle actually asked a question we get asked quite often. Since you guys are the experts on this topic, I don't know about that, but thank you for for thinking that. How long can Hollywood keep dropping wastes of money like Ghostbusters 2016 before they finally fold? Well, that's the thing, is you have people behind the money who are in the same mind think, so they're just going to keep pumping money into this, and that's why they turn around and blame us for these things failing.
That's the answer. They can do it for as long as someone is willing to put up money to continue losing. That's how long they can do it. Yeah. The moment that the financiers behind the picture says, "You know what, enough," that's when it stops, and not one moment before.
And then that's only going to happen if somebody can't find a way to make profit off of losing money.
Yeah. Because here's the thing. It's a matter of who is the one that is left with the loss. Like, for instance, look at Star Trek over at CBS. That cost a shitloads to the ultimate bill payer, which would be Netflix. But in the meantime, it's an extremely lucrative business to everyone involved in the production side. They don't lose anything. They collect huge paychecks on it. Netflix are the one that ends up losing, and they are locked in a contract, which means that they have to keep on paying. And then, of course, CBS, they have to put in some as well. But again, you have like this contract thing. So the people that are actually doing it, well, they're earning a shit ton on it. So really, it's follow the money train. As long as the people behind the scenes are willing to lose money, then it's going to carry on. But
Hollywood,
again, Star Trek on the movie side, where's Star Trek 4?
Yeah, Hollywood is a big scheme. Let me put it to you like this. Yeah, it is. Because, like, great example, and I know Andre's going to love this, Masters of the Universe movie.
Oh, Canon film, yeah.
Canon was supposed to pay for half that sumbitch. They didn't.
And then they took some of that money and used it to make other movies.
Then they went and took all the money that Mattel gave them and put it to 2 other movies.
And the director had to, out of pocket, pay for a new ending, I think.
And then when they went to Mattel and said, guess what? We spent all that money. We need some more. Mattel's like, what about the money you said you're going to put in? We don't have it. And if you don't give us any more money, the movie ain't getting finished. So Mattel's like, fuck. Here's a couple $1 million. Do whatever the fuck you can to get this movie finished, because they were already in over their heads. Like, that's Hollywood in a fucking nutshell right there. And all of that was planned. And that's what we're trying to say.
Yeah, that was the plan.
Yeah, all along. Canon knew they were never going to put a dime into that fucking movie. That's the number one rule in Hollywood. Never put your own money in a movie.
Right? Yeah, that's
Tom
true.
Connor's on abridged versions of film production.
Yeah,
that's exactly how that production went down. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, he's not joking. It's true. It's like also funny with the people from Mattel. Then they were like, to begin with, they were like, well, no, He-Man, he cannot kill anyone, he cannot harm anyone, he can't punch anyone.
Yeah.
And that was when they were writing it. And then they were filming and they were told by Canon, you know what? There's no more money. Give us some. Pass over some millions. And then they were over there. So then they were like, okay, this movie, this has to work. So you remember all that stuff we said about he can't punch anyone, he can't kill. Screw all that. Have him kill, have him rape, have him do whatever
movie done
to make this movie work.
Because at that point,
they also did, I think, the same thing with Superman 4. Like, they pre-sold part of it, and then
that was the money they used was to make Superman 4.
And then they divvied that money up as well to make 2 other films.
And then they banked on the sequel, and then it's a fucking story. Canon is in a nutshell. I don't know. Canon isn't necessarily Hollywood, because I know somebody said that in the chat.
But their models have been adopted.
That's Hollywood now. Like, that's all it is. It's like, fuck you, give me my money. Oh, it's gone. You know, the South Park, it's like, you invested $100 and it's gone. That's Hollywood.
Yeah. We can lose that money a lot faster. We can spend more in a day than you can spend in a year. That's Hollywood.
And they'll find a place to hide it in mattresses. And
that's right. If we keep losing money, I'm going to get rich. Yeah, that's Hollywood.
Well, when you find out from, like, you follow up on your residual checks and you're like, what is this new department of, like, extra critical, like, analysis thing? Why is all the profits going to that?
Exactly.
You just ignore that.
Yes, take it away, Tom.
Says, do you all think, a platform like YouTube could be a place to shake things up and shake loose by doing actual comedy shows there in a sitcom format?
Oh,
it could, but yeah, they've already put in place, I think, too many things to prevent that.
Yeah.
YouTube Red was their shot, and they really botched it.
They blew it. Well, now I will, in YouTube's defense, and partly because they have some of my stuff, I do think that most people don't know there's a vast library, including classic movies, old movies, film noirs, that YouTube Movies has that you can direct rent. We were talking earlier in the show about TVOD or transactional. You can find almost every title on YouTube if you want to watch a movie. Most people don't think YouTube as a first destination, but they're probably one of the richer transactional VOD spots. If you want to find a movie, it's on YouTube Movies here. But as original programming, there's so many protocols. There's so many. It's just not the format. It's not the place. It's certainly not the infrastructure for creativity like YouTube Red. It just failed miserably, and partly it's a branding problem with YouTube. YouTube is a place for homegrown innovation, homegrown shows, and for some reason the slickness of those shows that they generated just doesn't play well. So other than renting movies on YouTube Movies, which I was surprised to find classic 40s and 50s movies, that's great. They don't advertise it well.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
But no, at the same time, though, I think you're right, and that's why things like Cobra Kai went to Netflix.
Yeah, that's a big part of it, because like there's you have no real freedom of speech here. You can't say what you want up to a certain point, as long as it doesn't go against a certain narrative, and that right there, that alone is enough to stifle creativity to the point that can't be done, not on YouTube.
Yeah,
I just know how we have to dance around things all the time.
Absolutely.
Just to put up our regular stuff covering entertainment, and we have to dance around things.
Yeah, and they don't necessarily do a good job of promoting anything that isn't the big, studios and stuff like that, and television companies and all, corporations and stuff like that. So like, if you were trying to do something on your own, it's going to be tough. You could try, though. It'd be neat to see. I mean, I'd love to see people in the community. But anyway, moving on, we do have another one from Conquest Comics. What do you guys think comes after superhero fad runs its course, which I think it largely has? And have you heard about the war on theaters? As far as when the fad runs out,
it's not the fad. It's not going to run out. It's just going to continue a little bit.
It's going to change form, but it's still going to be around.
Yeah,
I think it'll. And I know Andre and I have gone back and forth on this a few times, and a few other people have. But I do feel like the comic book movies now are pretty much proven they're almost like Westerns in a way, even though Western was a much more broader and larger genre within films for a long time. I do feel like it could take that place as long as they keep playing their cards right. But as far as the big bloated Avenger movies, I think those are going to go away for a little while anyway.
Yeah, I think you're right. And also by comics, it's a very broad thing. I mean, Road to Perdition was based on a comic graphic novel. There's a deep bench on a lot of creativity. The outlet, it takes the barriers to entry to write a comic and do a comic series are a lot lower, and that's where a lot of good ideas are going. And as long as there's a way to make a living doing comics, those ideas are going to filter up, from graphic novels to movies. It's a natural progression because it's visual and it's storytelling.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like, it's not a fad. It's a genre within a genre. That's what comic movies are.
Yeah.
And moving on, Raging Golden Eagle says, didn't Uwe Boll make his money exploiting German tax laws? The movie sure didn't make any profit. Well, he did. It's not just German tax incentives. It was also like German funding.
German funding and Canadian tax incentives. He shot a lot of stuff in British Columbia.
And when those things were shut down, you know what happened? He wasn't able to make nearly as many movies.
And you better be careful what you say about Uwe Boll, because he might show up at your fucking house.
Yeah, he might go and show it and beat you up.
He's older now. I could take him.
I'm just saying, like, that's the last thing I need is, hey, I'm Uwe Boll. You were talking shit about my movie? And that's all I fucking need.
Milk yourself.
He's not going away.
But the thing is that he's actually made some good movies. Once in a Blue Moon.
I can't take shit away from him. Yeah, like, he's done his own thing, man. I mean,
yeah. You got to respect the guy. Yeah, it sucked if you liked his the movies that were based on like games that you liked. Then that kind of sucks for you. But like his original stuff, like especially the robbery thing, like the armed robber shoot 'em up kind of like thing. I forgot the name.
I can't think of what it's called now, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that was.
Was it Postal?
No, that was also based off a video game.
I love Postal. I will defend Postal to the death. I love that movie.
Yeah,
but no, that's not the one. It's like Armored or Panzer or something. Anyway, Rampage. Yes,
Rampage.
Garcia. Yeah. Rampage. Yeah. It's a fantastic. Yeah, Mega Kurgan also had it. That's a fantastic freaking movie.
That's right. That was 2016, something
Well,
like
and
that.
Sebastian says the Uwe Boll movie is only good when you're drunk. Well, that's ironic because he was probably drunk when he made them all. No, I'm just kidding.
I love his humor though. Like the best part of Postal is when he's playing himself and he's talking about the funding of the movies.
Yeah, I thought that was great. Yeah.
I haven't seen
that
it.
one had Dave Foley in it too, right? From
It did.
Kids in the
It's
Hall?
Zach Ward and Dave Foley, and
Oh,
it
yeah.
actually is a very self-reflexive film.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I just love seeing like his interviews or when he's just doing like videos and going off on shit. He's like the Gary Busey of directors. It's amazing. It's like, I will come to your house and I'll fuck you up. You ever tasted what tiger blood tastes like? I'll make sure you do.
Yeah. No, that's a brilliant thing. So yeah, well,
that was me doing Gary Busey, obviously not.
Yeah, obviously.
You don't want him showing
me, if anything. But, and to anyone wondering in the chat, no, a different Rampage. There's nothing to do with any.
Yeah, a different Rampage. The other Rampage.
It's a movie that just has to be seen. It's a very hard hitting movie. So I think it's a brilliant one, and the reviews about it are wrong. But with that, I would like to say thank you to Tom Konkle.
Yeah.
Yes, and same with Script Doctor.
Thank you,
Konkle.
I love being on the show.
And we love having you on. And you have quite a few awesome things. Like, for instance, Trouble is My Business is the movie to check out from you, first and foremost. And that is on YouTube, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's available on YouTube Movies right here. You can check it out.
Yeah, we're going to put that in the chat. We're going to put it in the description. So everyone go check out Tom's movie.
And I have a Christmas thing called The Haunting of Ebenezer Scrooge, which I will be releasing on multiple platforms in the next week. And it's kind of a Monty Python take on Dickens' A Christmas Carol. It's a lot of fun.
That sounds awesome, and we'll be putting that in the description there as well. We have it there on Instagram. It's the link to go to there.
It's on Instagram video. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So check those.
If I could type,
out.
Yeah.
And we'd also like to thank Script Doctor for joining us. Always a blast to have you on.
Thanks again for having me. It's always wonderful talking to you guys, and of course with Tom Konkle, we have some good laughs.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I've read some of your work. It's fantastic. I wish you all the best with your writing, and I'd love to work on something with you.
Well, one day I'm pretty sure something can happen.
Absolutely, I would love that.
Yeah, maybe a Midnight's Edge co-production, and I'm only half joking.
We have to talk. Yeah,
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Get Gary T involved.
Yeah.
Gary.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, whenever I come on, I notice someone in the chat always goes, "Hey, you're bringing on Gary now?" I'm like, "What is this?"
All I know is I want to make a monster movie like Gremlins. So
there you are. Gary's your guy. I've worked with Gary before. He's fantastic. I love his opinions too. He's just a great guy.
Gary is awesome. So
and if you haven't seen his recent announcement, do check that out.
Yeah, indeed. He announced his next movie on Midnight's Edge. So check out the video we posted yesterday. So if you are afraid of clowns, or you think that clowns are at all freaky, and that's going to be the movie for you, I'm pretty certain.
There you go. All right. Well, thanks again, Tom, and thanks, Script, of course, as always. And I want to thank all you out there for listening and joining us here on Midnight's Edge in the morning. We'll see you back here again on Friday. Take care, everybody, and take care of each other.